My entitled father is cutting me off all because I slept over at my boyfriend's house, which literally put into motion some of the most stressful moments of my life, as my father has literally turned on me in a way that I really never expected. And at this point, I seriously just don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. To start things off, I've always had a complicated relationship with my dad. He's very controlling and has always been a helicopter parent when I was growing up. I always wanted to be closer with him, but conversations were always very surface level, unless they were like criticisms or some kind of fight we were having. I felt like I was walking on eggshells around my dad and my stepmom, and I felt as though I couldn't be myself. I constantly had to tailor myself to fit their view of me so that I could live up to their expectations. For years, I followed their rules. I did as they wanted, and I made them proud until now. A couple years ago, when I was 18 years old, they found out that I had been having sleepovers with my boyfriend and immediately shut it down. They had a long, in-depth intervention where ultimately I was told to promise that it wouldn't happen again. Well, I'm now 21 years old, and I've been with my boyfriend for like 3.5 years. I decided after trying to keep the promise I didn't want to make that I didn't want to let them dictate where I decided to stay. So I started sleeping over at my boyfriend's about 1.5 years after the conversation. Well, fast forward and my car was having issues, and it just so happened to break down at my boyfriend's house. Also, the car's in my dad's name, so I had to have him come and help out, which is right at the moment when he asked me if I had slept over at his house. I didn't want to lie, so I told the truth, and he just immediately told me to get in the car and that he's taking me home. At first I declined, but he essentially told me I'm going with him whether I like it or not. After getting home, my stepmom and my dad pounced on me and accused me of lying and deceiving them. They told me I was still a young adult while being supported by them, and as long as I would need to follow their beliefs even if I didn't agree or even believe the same thing. And it was here they gave me two options. Option one is to stop all sleepovers with my boyfriend, download some tracking app, and I wouldn't be allowed to sleep at my mom's house, who, by the way, is the one who let me have the sleepovers. The second option was that I would become a full adult and financially support myself. Now, my dad paid for everything: the phone, the car, the apartment, my college, my health insurance, etc. And I gotta say, this decision was hard, but I wasn't happy under their constant control and micromanaging, so I chose to financially support myself. I did everything he asked me to do by the end of the month. I went on state insurance, I paid for an apartment and utilities, I paid for my college, etc. The end of the month was nearing, and the last thing I had to do was transfer to my own phone plan. He wanted me to stay in the same carrier, but onto my own plan. But my mom's plan had better deals, so I just went in to transfer. I then contacted my stepmom to get the transfer pin to my phone, and she happily helped me out. But when my dad realized this, he called me and yelled at me like I've never heard before. He told me to stop making this harder on everyone, how I'm not the daughter that he raised. He told me to stay on their phone insurance and pay them, and told me that I'm just like my mother. Then he said, "Oh, you can go play house with your boyfriend," and then told me to bring back all the equipment that they own, namely the phone, the tablet, and the car, telling me to go have a good life. And then he hung up on me. And I gotta be honest, I was heartbroken that my dad would say these things to me. I cried for hours, I had a panic attack, and I felt thoroughly confused. I was just trying to do what he had asked me. Like, why was he so mad? But you know what? I pulled my crap together, and I redesigned my plan to be fully on my own without anything he owned. But that's right when the text messaging fights came in, where I came to him all business with how I was going to handle things, and it's here I was met with resistance, fights, and unkind words. When I told him I was going on state insurance like he advised, he told me I was going to end up with a colostomy bag and ruin my life basically. He would get me to be emotional by saying nice things and acting like he cared, and then switching up and saying mean things again. It was this evil cycle of me trying to be self-sufficient and him fighting me. One big issue was that he told me months ago that he would pay for an apartment for me next year, signed the lease, and said he'd take care of me. But then he cut me off and said I needed to pay the cancellation fee. And you know what? I didn't agree to this, because why would I pay a cancellation fee for something he previously agreed to pay for, and something I would not have signed on if I knew he was going to back out? Another big problem was that my car was in a shop 40 minutes away, since before he took it away, I had planned on getting it fixed. Well, I told him that since he took it back, he would have to be the one to contact the shop and see about either fixing it or having it towed. And when I said that, he was extremely upset by this and told me that I needed to pay for the fix and hand deliver the car to him. But I stood up for myself and I said no, and he told me that I'm sticking them with payments. So the big question here is that, really, am I in the wrong? I constantly feel crazy with all the things he's been saying to me. He keeps saying that all of this was my decision and that choices have consequences. But I didn't feel like I had a choice when he said I wouldn't be allowed to stay the night at my mom's place per his agreement. I love my mom. Like, why would I ever agree to that? I go back and forth between guilt and resilience, and I'm in a constant state of stress. I understand they are upset about me not keeping my promise, is, and I feel bad about that. But on the other hand, I'm 21 years old, and I thought I could make the decision of where I stayed myself. I'm just so lost right now, and I really need some input because I really don't know what to do. Bro, there's no way I would ever put up with this. This is insane. Your dad is basically gaslighting you and trying to keep you on the plan because you make things cheaper. Like literally, it really seems like he sees you through the lens of like, oh, dollar signs, not daughter. Like this is so annoying. First of all, you're 21 years old and yes, you can spend the night at your boyfriend's place if you want to. It is insane for him to be like, as long as you're living under my roof, you can't do that. If you don't like it, you can either stay here and let us track you all the time, or you can be a full adult. It's like, holy crap, the second I heard that second option, I was like, dude, let's be a full adult real quick. Let's figure this out. And you know what? You are figuring it out. You're getting all this taken care of like it's nothing. Meanwhile, your dad's freaking out because he's realizing, oh wait, you're not bluffing. You actually are gonna leave. And that really is the only reason he's fighting back on this. He's giving you a hard time because he knows for a fact that he'll have no control over you once you're a full adult. Like that's the whole reason he's like, no, stay on our plan, but also hand deliver the car to me. It's like, dude, the apartment he tried to get you, the car he tried to give you, all this other crap literally is in his name. And there's no way in the world I would ever agree to any of this. It just screams like entitlement and like narcissism in my opinion, especially when he's trying to like spin this against you. Like that is crazy talk. So no, you're not the jerk. Your dad is being very weird. And in my opinion, I think it's time for you to move out and move on because this helicopter parent act is obnoxious and you do not deserve this in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My neighbor apparently spies on me whenever my husband is away and is constantly telling him that I'm cheating despite the fact that I'm not. And now I'm incredibly pissed off about this because I want to approach my neighbor about it, but I'm just not sure if that's the right move. Here's what's happening. Okay, so for a bit of context, my husband took a weekend trip with our kids. During this time, my brother came over and he discussed with me some cognitive decline our mom has been showing signs of. We purposely waited to have this conversation while my kids were away since it wasn't really something they should be worrying about or even hearing about. Later that same evening, our cousin also stopped by. We had some drinks and our cousin ended up driving my brother home, still fairly early in the evening. Apparently, when my brother arrived, the neighbor was outside and gave him a smile and a wave. Well, when my brother's car spent the night in our driveway, my neighbor apparently snapped photos of it and texted it to my husband with a description of the man who he assumed spent the night, telling my husband that I was cheating on him. Now, my husband, of course, laughed it off and told our neighbor that that was my brother's car and that he had left it there because he had a few beers. My husband also showed me his text history with the neighbor, where the neighbor had been texting him random observations like this on and off for a while. But at no point does my husband encourage this. He actually told the neighbor several times that this isn't necessary and that he trusts me and to please stop surveying me. The neighbor just laughs it off and insists, oh, they need to look out for each other. At this point, I'm feeling creeped out and mad at the neighbor and I want to confront him. My husband prefers to just keep it a texting back saying, hey man, no need for this, and overall just ignore it. But would I be overreacting if I did approach this guy? Because right now I'm honestly not sure what to do. Okay, in my opinion, I really think that something stronger needs to be said to this guy because this is very inappropriate. Like seriously, I think it needs to be something just a bit more. Clearly your husband's saying to him, hey, don't watch my wife, there's no need for that. Like that's obviously not working, so I think stronger language needs to be used. And I'm not saying cuss the guy out, but I'm thinking like maybe showing up to his house and making it very clear that this is inappropriate. So yeah, that's what I would do in my opinion, and no, you're not the jerk or overreacting for like wanting to say something. Because I know if my neighbor was falsely accusing me of cheating, I'd be pretty pissed off as well. Am I the jerk for swearing at a group of teenagers and telling them to shut up after they literally talked for over 2/3 of the movie I was trying to watch? Because right now I feel bad and I'm not sure if I went just a little bit too far. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm an adult and I saw Scream 7 last night at a local independent cinema. A group of like 4 or 5 teenage boys came in late and sat right behind me. From the second they sat down, they were talking. And it didn't stop for most of the film. They weren't whispering either. Like it was a full commentary and conversation. During the opening scene, which is a tense jump scare sequence, they were making inappropriate gulping noises and snickering. At first, I tried to ignore it, hoping they would get bored and just settle down. But when it didn't stop about 20 or 30 minutes into the movie, I tried the usual nonverbal hints, looking back in their direction a few times without eye contact, just hoping they would get the message that they were bothering people. But no, of course they didn't stop. I didn't want to have to deal with it, but it was also ruining the movie. So internally, I was practicing a polite way of saying, please be quiet. About 2/3 into the movie, there was an extremely climactic, quiet, and tense scene, and one of them was commentating non-stop. Like, you should have been able to hear a pin drop, but one of them was performing a live analysis on the scene, and that was the final straw. I turned around and I snapped at them, and I said, "Would you please shut the F up? Holy crap." They then went completely silent after that and didn't talk for the rest of the film. For context, I'm not someone who expects total silence in the cinema. I was reacting to the movie myself, like gasping or laughing at moments. And I think normal reactions like this, or the occasional quick whisper to a friend, are reasonable, and they're part of the experience. What bothered me was the constant talking throughout the movie, and what seemed like almost trolling behavior. I know swearing wasn't the best way to handle it, and I wish that my tone was the polite and calm version I was rehearsing. But seriously, am I the jerk for the way I handled this? Because I honestly am not sure what to make of it. Okay, honestly, I completely understand where you're coming from, and I understand why you snapped. If you're literally talking right behind me for over 2/3 of the movie, which is probably well over an hour into the movie, I would also be really pissed off. So to that extent, I don't blame you for snapping at them and being like, "Guys, shut up." Even if you did swear, I don't care about that. If you're gonna go to the theater, then holy crap, at least have some theater etiquette. That means being quiet and not ruining the experience for everybody else. If you want to have some kind of commentary, do that at home on your couch. Don't do that in a public setting where we're all watching the movie. That's rude, it's inconsiderate, and it's just completely unacceptable. And sure, you probably could have stepped out and grabbed a manager and told them to tell him to shut up, but at that point, the movie's almost done and you really just want to watch it. So no, you're not the jerk. I think what you did is completely fine, and these guys absolutely deserved it. An entitled Karen at the airport demanded that I give up my charging spot, all because her kid's iPad was more important than whatever I was doing. But once I refused to do so, this lady essentially tried to guilt trip me in a way that was very obnoxious. And it honestly blows my mind, and I still have not gotten over this. Here's what happened. So this happened last week at the airport during a 3-hour layover. I got there early, found one of those charging benches with a built-in USB port near my gate. I sat down and plugged in my laptop and my phone. Both were pretty low, and I had some work to finish before my flight. About 45 minutes in, a woman with a stroller and a kid who looked maybe 6 or 7 parks herself right next to me. And I think to myself, fine, there are 2 other ports on the bench that are completely free. She then plugs in and settles in, and it's just some normal stuff so far. Then she leans over and says, "Excuse me, could you actually move your things? My daughter needs both ports for her iPad and her headphone charger." And when she said that, I looked at her and I said, "Well, I'm using both of my ports," and I pointed to the 2 free ones right next to her. She already had one of them and the other one was literally empty. She then lets out this massive sigh and goes, "Well, her iPad is almost dead, and she gets really upset on flights without it. I'm sure whatever you're doing can wait." But I just looked at her and I said, "No, I'm working, and I got here first." She then stared at me for a moment and said to me, "It's really disappointing when adults can't make small sacrifices for children." Then she turned to her daughter and said loudly, "Some people just don't care about kids, honey." And with that, I put my headphones on, I finished my work, and my laptop was charged to about 95%. And her kid watched something on the iPad using one of the free ports that was already available pretty much the entire time. The audacity of acting like a fully occupied charging bench is somehow your personal family power strip is honestly insane and incredibly annoying. Yeah, I think I would have the exact same energy if someone said that to me because, dude, you can attract a lot more flies with honey than with vinegar. So if your immediate response to me telling you no is to say, "Wow, some people don't care about kids. How inconsiderate." And to say that about me to your kid passive-aggressively out loud, dude, talk about acting like a child. What is your problem? I have a personal rule in life that if someone's gonna act that childish, then congratulations. You will either never get a reaction out of me, or I'm gonna double down on the behavior you want me to change. Because this really could have been an easy conversation without this lady going to such extreme lengths to make the original poster feel bad, which in my opinion is just super entitled and so unnecessary. Am I the jerk for canceling my fiancé and I's luxury cabin retreat in the mountains after he literally tried to bring his mom to the cabin that I rented out? Because right now his entire family is pissed off, and honestly, I just don't know what to do. Here's how it all happened. So my fiancé and I have been together for 5 years, and for our anniversary, I booked a super fancy, expensive luxury cabin in the mountains. It had a private hot tub, a massive fireplace, and a stunning view. It was supposed to be a high-end romantic break just for the 2 of us. I planned and paid for the whole thing. I dropped a lot of money on the rental, I bought premium groceries and expensive wine, and I packed everything. And I told him, you just need to bring yourself and be ready to relax. Well, Friday afternoon, he pulls into my driveway, and I walk out to the car, and his mom is sitting in the passenger seat with her luggage. I asked him what was going on, and he just smiled and told me his mom was bored lately, so he invited her to come along to the luxury cabin for a relaxing family weekend. And for the record, he did not ask me first about this. He just assumed that she could stay in the huge place that I paid for. And my God, I was so shocked. I then pulled him aside and I asked him, "Are you serious right now? I spent a fortune on this for our anniversary." Well, his mom heard me and immediately started crying, acting like I was attacking her. My fiance then got angry and said, "You're being completely selfish and ruining the vibe." But you know what? I didn't even argue. I just grabbed my bags out of the trunk, I walked back into my house, and I locked the doors. I then canceled the booking, and luckily I got most of my money back minus a hefty cancellation fee, and I just ignored his calls. And now his family is texting me saying that I'm so disrespectful for leaving them in the driveway with no plans. Now, my fiance says that I completely ruined our anniversary and that I owe his mom a massive apology for not letting her enjoy the luxury trip. But I just feel like I stood up for myself and my hard-earned money, but pretty much everybody's making me doubt myself. So am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I'm very pissed off about this. Okay, dude, if someone did something like this to me, I would probably also be very pissed off. This was supposed to be a private couples getaway. You quite literally planned all of this out just for the two of you. You didn't have anyone else in mind except for the two of you. And this definitely did not include your mother-in-law of all people. Like, holy crap, that would piss me off so badly. So no, you're not the jerk for walking out and being really pissed off. Like, if anything, maybe you could have had like a conversation with your fiance in private and told him that you don't want this and that this is really not okay. And maybe spent like a little bit more time talking to him about this, but honestly, it sounds like he made up his mind. And part of that included basically ignoring all the hard work you put into getting this ready. So yeah, I think you're totally justified in this scenario. I think the way that this happened is completely messed up. And on top of that, it's not your fault at all, because your fiance really should have talked to you about this ahead of time, or at least read the room that no, this is not something that family can go on. It's not a family luxury trip. It's really meant for just the both of you. And the fact that he somehow missed that, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable and very inappropriate. Am I the jerk for telling my manager that I won't be staying late to cover for a coworker who's constantly calling in sick on Fridays to a degree that is really suspicious? Because right now, I'm honestly not sure what else to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, for a bit of context, I work a standard Monday through Friday schedule. I'm in a team of 6 people and we have one colleague, who I will call Dan, who has called in sick on a Friday at least once a month for the past 8 months. And I've kept a rough track of this because it has become noticeable. Now, I have no proof or anything, and I want to be clear that I'm not making an accusation. I just notice a pattern, and other people on the team have also noticed it too. The real issue is what happens when Dan is absent on Friday. Because of how our workflows are structured, his tasks don't disappear. They get redistributed. And because Fridays are often when we close our weekly reporting, the redistribution tends to land on whoever is willing to stay a bit later. For the first few months, I've covered without really complaint because I genuinely thought it was bad luck, and I didn't really want to be the person who makes a fuss when a colleague is unwell. Well, last Friday, my manager came over at around 4:30 and said that Dan had called in again and asked if I could stay an extra hour to cover the reporting. But you know what? This time I said no. I didn't say it rudely, I just said it clearly. I said that I had plans and that I didn't think it was fair for the same people to keep absorbing the impact of reoccurring absences. My manager looked uncomfortable and said he understood, but also that the work still needed doing. But I said that was a scheduling problem, not my personal responsibility to fix on short notice every time. He ended up asking someone else who also said no, and in the end, he did the reporting himself. He hasn't said anything directly since then, but the atmosphere has become slightly cooler this week. A couple of my teammates told me privately that they were glad I said something. So really, am I at fault? Like, am I the jerk for saying no to my manager? Because I'm getting sick of the way Dan keeps calling out, and I seriously just don't want to deal with that any longer. Okay, it really sounds like Dan is trying to pull one over on management, and instead of doing something about it, like, I don't know, reprimanding Dan or forcing him to get like a doctor's note, they're just shoveling all of his responsibilities over to your desk simply because you keep saying yes. Like, that's all that's going on right now, by the way. Your manager keeps coming to you because he knows you'll do it instead of, like, I don't know, dispersing it appropriately. So no, you're not the jerk for putting your foot down. If I was forced to stay late over an hour every single Friday because of one stupid coworker, I would also be pissed off and I would also turn this work down. Because overall, it literally just doesn't seem fair. I recently found out that my close friend slept with my girlfriend while I was together with her. And at this point, I'm really struggling with how to process it, and I just don't know what to do. Here's how it happened. Okay, so I'm a 22-year-old Japanese guy, and I recently learned something that just completely changed how I see a lot of people in my life. About 1.5 years ago, I was in a serious relationship. We lived together, we went through a lot together, and I genuinely thought we might end up getting married someday. But the relationship wasn't perfect though. And towards the end, we were arguing a lot and things were unstable. During that time, my girlfriend girlfriend slept with one of my closest friends, and I only found out recently. And the friend who did it was someone I trusted a lot. We traveled together, we went hiking in the mountains, we drove long distances together, and we spent a lot of time talking about life. He knew everything about my relationship and how much I cared about her. For more than a year, he kept this from me and continued hanging out with me like nothing happened. But recently, he contacted me and confessed, because he said the guilt had been eating at him. I even had another friend listen to the call with me so that I could confirm the truth, and he admitted it. It happened after a big fight my girlfriend and I had. She apparently initiated it. She did tell me at the time that she had cheated, but she never told me who it was with. And back then, I just chose to stay and try to work things out because I loved her. But now that I know it was him, the whole situation feels surreal. Right now, I feel anger, disgust, sadness, and also a strange sense of relief because the truth is finally out. I've already cut both of them out of my life, but I still feel like my trust in people has been completely shaken. So how do you actually move forward mentally after something like this? Has anyone here dealt with a betrayal from a close friend like that? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, I think this is one of those situations where you should be glad that you know the truth instead of what you did have where it's like, oh man, my girlfriend cheated on me, but I'm trying to make it work. Because holy crap, if I was in your shoes and I found that out early in the relationship where I'm like, oh yeah, my girlfriend cheated on me with one of my close friends, I would immediately drop both of them out of my life. Like that is crazy talk. So I think that's like the only silver lining, but when it comes to like moving on, honestly, I just want to say I'm so sorry you're going through this. This has got to be devastating and it's got to be so hard to deal with. But hopefully you can find a solution to this and try to find some kind of solace because genuinely it sounds like you had a crappy girlfriend and I really think you're going to have a much better life without her. My toxic entitled neighbors have aggressive dogs they refuse to keep in check, literally allowing them to go all over the place as they feel the need to try and attack me or my dogs anytime they see us. But after trying to have a civil conversation with them, they decided to get nasty and tell me to get lost, forcing me to get revenge by literally exposing them for their crappy behavior and shaming them publicly in the entire community. Here's how I did it. Okay, for a bit of context, I have 3 dogs. I'm super conscious of being a responsible owner because if they bark outside, they're brought in immediately, and each one of them has been trained extensively in obedience. My neighbor also has 3 dogs. When they first moved in, they were shocked at how well-trained mine were. I could tell that it made them insecure because theirs were, and still are, completely out of control. Not to mention they're reactive and constantly barking. So when they would see me address mine, they would tell me, don't do that, they're just being dogs and doing their job. Which, if we're gonna translate that, they're basically saying they don't want to feel bad about their own dog's chaotic behavior. Now, my yard is fenced in with a vinyl picket fence that cost about $8,000. They built their fence using mine as the 4th wall, which wasn't an issue at all. That is, until one of their dogs started repeatedly trying to break through my fence to attack my dogs. Now, I went above and beyond to avoid conflict, and in fact, I installed a privacy backing on my fence and planted about 15 boxwoods, which was about $1,000 more spent on this. And this was all in some kind of attempt to block the view so their dogs wouldn't go berserk. My neighbor's husband literally mocked me by saying, that's not gonna work, they're still gonna hear each other. And you know what? Spoiler alert, he was completely right. So after the extra financial investment and the labor-intensive work of planting the bushes didn't work, I sent a polite, carefully worded text, and I asked that they prevent their dog from attacking my fence as I was concerned it was gonna eventually break. I even offered solutions, I emphasized safety, and said I still wanted to maintain good rapport with one another. Well, their response was to play the victim and blame my dogs. Then I started getting unhinged text messages from the wife about my message ruining her week and how stressful this is for them, as well as the fact that apparently I owe them an apology. Eventually, they put up a 6-foot privacy fence attached to mine, which as a side note is a completely illegal height. So this would be problem solved, right? Well, no. They started letting their dogs off the leash in the unfenced areas. I ended up getting security cameras installed, and thank God I did, because I caught everything on video. The same dog trying to break through my fence to attack my dogs, their other 2 running into my garden, and all of them running at large in the street where people walk constantly. After they started cursing me out when their dog tried attacking mine, I got the police involved, which really infuriated her. The lieutenant himself told me to keep sending every clip, saying that he would give them a fine every single time. He was genuinely concerned about safety in the neighborhood after seeing my footage. And it was here that my petty revenge really started to take place. Tonight, I caught them on camera walking their dog in the wildlife refugee across across the street. The dog takes a crap and they simply don't pick it up. My neighborhood has a Facebook group where people constantly complain about mystery poop, but this time, instead of ignoring it, I sent the video to our community leader. He told me to post it publicly and also asked me that I email every resident about their behavior, which was something I was happily gonna do. And now the entire neighborhood knows that they're scumbags who not only let their dogs off the leash and have an aggressive dog trying to attack others, but they also don't pick up after themselves. People even commented that they've stopped walking on our block because they felt unsafe, and others said they always wondered who was leaving piles of crap all over the place. Even better, our community leader also personally went over to shame them and said that he'd bring it up with the cops as well, which honestly is so great because my god, power in numbers, baby. So tonight, instead of me being frustrated, they got called out publicly, they got shamed privately, and will likely get fined again pretty soon. And I just got to sit back knowing every single word I said was backed by video evidence with no way for them to even try and spin it against me. Okay, I love this so much because I cannot stand toxic neighbors. It's like, dude, we already have to live next to each other and put up with each other's garbage. The least you could do is try to train your dogs properly and, I don't know, like take care of them. Letting them run loose and attack my dogs and possibly attack other people in the neighborhood? Like, I'm sorry, that's not okay in my opinion. Especially when you're gonna subtly and like blatantly victim blame and be like, wow, you're stressing me out. You need to apologize for ruining my week. And it's like, lady, your dog nearly ruined my dogs. Like, I can imagine this dog trying to like chew through the fence, dude. Like, that's crazy. So good for you for getting this revenge and literally shaming them, hopefully, into silence. Because neighbors like this are honestly the worst thing in the world to deal with. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for calling my friend out for constantly wasting my time, as she is constantly late to anything that we schedule? Because right now, I think I may have lost a friend for calling her out, and I'm just not sure what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, I want to start off by saying that my friend has a habit of being late, and I'm not talking like 15 to 20 minutes late. She's at minimum 45 minutes late. I wanted to meet her for a coffee before I was flying to London, and she asked me to meet her at a salon at 2:30. While leaving my house, which is close to the salon, I checked with her if she got parking, and she said she'll be there at 3 o'clock. Then at 3 o'clock, she said it will be 4 o'clock instead. Well, I called her out for disrespecting my time, and I told her that I was flying the next day, and I had a million things to do. It wasn't fair to keep me waiting without a heads up. She should have told me when she knew that she was going to be late and not waited for me to ask. She then said to me, well, I've got a schedule that keeps me on my toes. And I told her we all do. We all have jobs, lives, responsibilities, and families, and to do this is just disrespectful. She then told me that I come off too strong and asked me to stop talking for a while. At this point, I lost my temper and I said that she always avoided accountability and made it about energy or coming off too strong instead of owning up to the fact that she should have been more respectful of my time. Now, this isn't the first time. She's done this multiple times, and I've gently told her, but she's not registering it. Well, now she stopped talking to me and just unfollowed me on Instagram entirely. So, am I the jerk for calling her out here? Because honestly, I'm still incredibly pissed off. Okay, dude, this is not a good friend at all. She literally was like, what, an hour and a half late for you meeting up? And here you are trying to fly out to London the same day? Like, dude, what's going on right now? And also, I want to say that I know exactly the kind of person you're talking about. They're the kind of person who literally does nothing wrong and yet is always disrespectful of everybody's time. And you hit the nail on the head for accountability. They always divert what you're saying as if, oh man, you're being really mean right now. As if the onus is on you to try and correct yourself instead of them owning up to their mistake. It's like they're trying to divert any blame from themselves back to you, all because you're rightfully so pissed off at them. So in my opinion, I think you did the right thing because this was not a good friend in the slightest. And in my opinion, this is no longer a bad habit, but instead this is a clear and obvious choice that she's making at your expense. An entitled neighbor has been stealing Wi-Fi from my tenant for over 5 years. And now that my tenant is moving out, they're demanding that I plug the Wi-Fi back in so that they can do their job as they work from home. Here's what happened. Okay, so I have a few apartments that I rent out, and today one of the tenants moved out. So I went over for the inspection, the key handover, and the paperwork. Now this guy had been a fantastic tenant over the years, and today was no exception. The place had been cleared out and cleaned, making checking off the boxes a complete formality. When I got there, the only thing left was the internet modem. This particular apartment had had a family member living in it years ago, and I had arranged the internet for the place. When this tenant moved in, who I will call Moose for the sake of the story, just for the sake of simplicity, we agreed to just leave the internet as is and add an extra $50 to the rent. And this was back in 2018, and honestly, this was no problem across the board. Assuming the next tenant could look after whatever they want with respect to internet and cable and phone bundle and whatever else they might want, I planned to cancel the service and return the equipment. I unplugged the modem and cables and I left it on the kitchen counter while we reviewed the unit and the paperwork. While looking around, his phone buzzed a few times and actually rang once. And he very politely ignored all of that while we were talking and walking around. But then suddenly there was a knock at the door. I thought to myself, weird. I had arranged for a viewing of the place while I was here, but how did they get in? Nobody buzzed them in, and there's no way to get to the right floor if you're not buzzed in. Well, Moose opens the door and it's not the people coming to view the place. It's the next door neighbor. And let's call her Veronica for the sake of the story. She comes in and there's a bit of, oh yeah, you're moving out. Where are you going to? And all this other chit chat. But she's eyeing the modem sitting on the counter. Eventually, she says something like, would it be okay if you plug that back in? I was actually using it. And when Veronica said that, I thought to myself, wait a second, you've been using the internet and the Wi-Fi? And yeah, indeed, it turns out back in 2020, at the start of the pandemic, her office shut down and her job turned into full-time work from home. And at some point early in the pandemic, she had had some internet issues and asked Moose if she could hop on his Wi-Fi, which did have a clear signal to her place, all the way until her issues were finally resolved. And at the time, he just said to her, sure, no problem. Well, fast forward more than 5 years later, and it turns out she long ago canceled her own service and is full-time running her office, her smart TV, and her phone off of my Wi-Fi. And now that the plug got pulled, she wants it back. She's offering to give Moose money, saying, but please, just plug it in. It's Friday. I need to work and I need it over the weekend. I'll sort it all out on Monday. But Moose doesn't know what to say, and neither do I if I'm being completely honest. The truth is, Moose never noticed it. It's high-speed internet and clearly enough for everyone's devices, and the monthly contract lands in the middle of the month for some reason, so it's actually paid for the next 2 weeks. In the midst of all of that, someone buzzes from downstairs and it's the people for the viewing. I'll call them Archie and Betty for the sake of the story. They come up and then oddly, Veronica and Betty actually know each other. They often run into each other at the same Pilates studio that they go to. Veronica said to her, oh, it'd be so much fun if you moved in. We could go to class together and all this other stuff. Well, Veronica offers to take the modem, plug it in at her place, and promise to deal with the cable company and all that. So basically, she just wants to take it over since it's all working. Now, I'm not sure it works like that, and you can't just take the equipment next door and have it work. But she says to me, oh, please let me try. So I say to her, okay, go ahead. She leaves with the modem, having agreed to deal with the internet company and return the hardware if needed, which actually saves me a lot of hassle. So she leaves, and a few minutes later, she texts me that it's working and says thank you so much. I then spoke to the internet company and I explained the situation, and I canceled the service effective the end of the billing cycle. Veronica has a couple of weeks to set up an account, and they'll either just move the existing equipment over to it, or she can swap it for new hardware. Either way, I'm completely done with it. So I don't know, maybe she's entitled and maybe she's not. She made a comment at one point which had to have been tongue-in-cheek because it was so outrageous. She said something like, oh, come on, please leave it on, don't be cheap. And sure, I might be the cheap one, but you are literally the one who used free Wi-Fi for half a decade and didn't even bother setting something up for yourself until you got caught. Oh wow, the original poster is way more patient than I am. If I found out someone from another unit was using the Wi-Fi I bought for the unit I was renting out, I would be like, no, you're not going to use that Wi-Fi. Are you nuts? Set it up yourself, dude. Like, what are you doing? So yeah, it's probably a good thing I was not in this story or in this circumstance, because I don't think I would have been that agreeable, because this seems really selfish and just incredibly entitled. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. It got about 3 million views on the subreddit, so if you want your story to be seen by a lot of people, then please check out the links in the description if you would like to submit your own stories, because we would love to hear what you have to say. Am I the jerk for refusing to attend my sister's wedding, all because she made a rule about my wheelchair, saying that she doesn't want it in any photos because she says it'll be distracting? Because right now I'm saying that I simply don't want to show up, which is now causing a massive rift in my family. Here's what's going on. I'm a 27-year-old female and I've been in a wheelchair since I was 19 years old. My sister is getting married next spring and asked me to be a bridesmaid. Now, I was really touched and I said yes immediately. But then she sat me down and explained that her wedding is going to be aesthetic and vintage garden party themed. And she asked if I could find a way to not use the wheelchair that day. Now, I thought I misheard, but she said she didn't want my chair in the photos because it would distract from the look that she was going for. Well, I told her that was impossible and honestly pretty insulting. She then backtracked and said that maybe I could just sit in the back so it's not as noticeable. But I was devastated when she said this, and I told her if my presence in a wheelchair embarrassed her that much, then I just simply wouldn't come at all. all. Well, now my family's torn. My mom says I was right to set boundaries, but my dad says I'm being dramatic and it's just one day. My sister is crying that I'm ruining her wedding by refusing to compromise. So honestly, am I the jerk for refusing to attend? Because right now I'm still very hurt and I just don't know what to do. Okay, dude, your sister is so toxic. What is she thinking, dude? Seriously, let's think about this for a second. She is seriously telling you need to get out of that wheelchair for my wedding. But it's like, okay, and what do you want me to do? Start walking around? The original poster needs that wheelchair to move around and function as a human. Is she really gonna act like, oh, well, this just doesn't look good with my aesthetic, so please sit in the back? Like, dude, what are you talking about? At that point, I would rather just not go. So to that end, I don't blame the original poster at all. Like, there's no way in the world I would ever be like, oh yeah, you're right. I'll sit in the back in a chair that I can't move around in. It's fine that I can't walk, no big deal. So no, you're not the jerk for turning this down. I would have done the exact same thing because what she's asking for is quite literally delusional and completely insane. My entitled district manager basically implied that my job was useless. So I maliciously complied and allowed him to follow me around for the day, showing him once and for all just how much I do for my job, resulting in massive changes in the store I was working for. Here's how it all went down. Okay, so at the time I was working in a toy shop and it was coming up to Christmas. So just try to imagine how busy we were, but then multiply that by like 10 because we were way busier than that. Each worker was given a specific section of the store to keep tidy and stocked, and mine at the time was what we called boys' toys, all the action figures and so on. However, I was the only person other than managers who could process refunds, exchanges, and so on, and because boys' toys was right beside the tills, and the managers could be anywhere at the time as we didn't have any radios, the cashiers got into the habit of calling me for help. And with it being nearly Christmas, there were a lot of exchanges. There were refunds and other things needing my intervention. Our store was franchised and we had a district manager who had never worked the floor a day in his life. I mean, this guy had some kind of business degree. He visited our store a few weeks before Christmas, came into the boys' toys an hour or so before closing, and got mad because it was messy and there were some gaps in the shelves. And this guy literally refused to listen to my attempted explanations and just stormed off. Well, the next morning he was right there at opening time. When we had our pre-start meeting where sections were assigned, he interrupted our manager to say, I'm putting myself with the original poster today. She clearly doesn't know how to handle the sections, so I'm going to show her what's what. There was an awkward silence for a moment before my manager went on with the assignments, and I just kept perfectly silent the entire time. Well, the district manager trailed me in my section and looked around. He said to me, well, what's first? Or don't you have a plan at all? And before I could even begin to explain what was going on, I said to him, sorry, the cash register is calling for help. I'll be back in just a minute. I dealt with the tills, I returned, I got halfway through explaining the first job, and then I was called away again. By the time I got back, it was 15 minutes into my shift, and he still hadn't done any work yet. Now, I have to give it to him. He did stick it out the entire day. And eventually, I finally managed to show him what we were doing, and he worked his way up to the stock room and down to the shelves half a dozen times. He ended up having to tidy up the same set of shelves because kids just love throwing things all over the floor, and watched as I was called away an average of 5 times an hour. And sure, I usually don't keep track of that stuff, but you better believe I definitely did that day. He took his lunch when I did, but 10 minutes late because of a refund. Now, he didn't apologize, of course. I mean, I was too lowly for that. But the next morning at the opening meeting, my manager announced that from now on, Boys Toys would have 2 staff as a matter of course, and that the managers would make an effort to be more available on the tills, which honestly should have been the case from the very beginning. Oh man, this is one of those situations where a district manager actually did their job properly. They followed around and they saw exactly what the problem was, and they fixed it as soon as possible. Like, in my opinion, I would lose my mind if I had manager duties and still was not a manager myself. Like, that's really dumb and that really is super frustrating. But you know what? At least this kind of worked out to a certain extent, because your managers were clearly dropping the ball, and that is absolutely not your fault. My sister really thought that she could pay me below a livable wage just to move away from my life and take care of her child. Because honestly, I am blown away by what she just said, and I'm having a hard time getting over it. Here's how it all went down. Years ago, after my sister had her first child, she had a hard time with childcare. For reference, she lives in the middle of nowhere, an hour outside of her nearest big city. She wanted to hire a nanny to watch her child for 40 hours a week, but not pay them a livable wage. And she was complaining about this to me all the time. I told her I understood her frustration with childcare being expensive, but also was trying really hard not to validate her belief that someone should work full-time in poverty. It really just wasn't worth fighting over. I can move you here for less than that to take care of him, with her implying that she would move me in from another state. Well, I immediately responded by laughing at her, and I said, no, you couldn't, and simply refused to agree on that point while she sputtered and attempted a rebuttal. And this completely deflated her until she just changed the subject and it was never brought back up again. And I will say eventually she did find someone to help out. Now, I want to say that I'm child-free by by choice, but there is honestly no amount of money that would ever make me want to become a nanny for her, because if this is the way she wants to treat people, then honestly, it's simply not worth my time. Oh man, this is such a bad look. Like, what's going on here? First of all, the fact that she's like, oh man, I don't want to pay them a livable wage. They should just do it basically for free. They can live in poverty and watch my kids. What's the deal here? Like, don't lead off by saying that and then be like, wait, I can move you here and you could take care of him, because you already know for a fact she's not going to pay you a livable wage and you're probably going to be stuck there in some kind of way. Like, talk about completely shooting yourself in the foot. Like, what an idiot. So yeah, I think you dodged a train on that one, because your sister does not sound like a good person in the slightest. My entitled manager literally says that we will no longer get any overtime, resulting in my department falling apart right at the seams. Here's how it happened. Okay, years ago, I worked in a meat packing plant as a supervisor. It had its ups and downs, but overall it was good. That is until a new production manager was hired. And for the sake of the story, I'll call him Bob. Bob didn't come from the floor or even the leadership itself. I mean, he had an engineering background, which I'm like, whatever, I'll try to keep an open mind. But unfortunately, my mind was only open for maybe about 4.5 minutes. On the first day in the first time meeting, he declares that he's going to right the ship. And it's like, okay, sure thing, boss. Right that ship that is already sailing in the right direction. It's here that he declares that going forward, there will be no more overtime. He states that we're throwing away money with the amount of overtime that we pay. I asked for clarification about like vacation coverage or sick calls, etc. And he replies by saying no overtime and there's no exceptions. So I think to myself, okay, sure thing, boss man. Now I should point out, the department I work in is massive. My direct team at that time was 70 people. There were other rooms that other supervisors looked after for a total of about 220 employees. Now I'm assuming all of you reading this are infinitely smarter than Bob and have figured out that with a team that size, we don't just get one sick call. We averaged like 7 per day. Vacations also meant that 10% of the workforce was cut off, which usually hovered to about 12 people a day. Not to mention the leaves of absence, people leaving early, etc. So on Friday, I went to Bob one last time. I let him know that we were going to be short 19 people next week, and I asked him once more to please approve overtime. But I got a flat out no in response. I considered going above him, but I figured letting the guy drown would be a much better option. So I didn't ask for any overtime. Employees were coming up to me like, boss, are you sure there's no overtime next week? And I just told him, yes, I'm sure. Bob wants it that way. Well, come next week and 2 production lines aren't running. Bob comes to me upset, demanding to know why 2 of the lines aren't running, as he's wondering if it's a mechanical downtime or something like that. But I say to him, no, I don't have anyone to run the line. He then stammers something about staffing appropriately and having better planning, but I simply said to him, I asked you multiple times to approve overtime, and you said no every time. I was just following your direction. Well, this is when he storms off angrily, with him yelling, get some people in here right now. Anyways, I then have to call people at home and schedule overtime for the rest of the week because Bob sunk our ship instead of righting it. And you know what? I simply couldn't staff those 2 lines that day. And for anyone wondering, not running 2 lines that day lost the company about $120,000. And no, I'm not exaggerating. Bob then gets a strip torn off of him by his boss, who is a guy that I've known at that time for about 10 years. He then came up to me and spoke to me about it outside while we were smoking. He said to me, what was that guy thinking? I thought engineers were supposed to be smart. And I literally started choking. I was laughing so hard. Needless to say, Bob lasted about 3 months, and honestly, I was not sad to see him go in the slightest. Okay, I love this so much because holy crap, some bosses just don't know what they're doing, especially if they're coming in and being like, oh, I'm going to fix all the problems with this place. Just you wait, it's going to be on me and I'm going to take care of it. And it's like, okay, well, I'm glad you feel that way, but why on earth would you be like, yeah, we're going to get rid of overtime and think that's somehow going to help anybody in the slightest? So yeah, I love the fact that the original poster just kind of let him sink this ship because it sounds like Bob deserved to be humbled. My entitled neighbor kept treating my driveway like free parking, as he would constantly have his friends and family block my driveway and prevent me from parking on my own property. But after asking him dozens of times to please stop it, he simply did not get the message. So I decided to get some revenge by towing away his in-laws' SUV that was literally blocking my entire driveway, costing him about $300 and teaching him a lesson that he soon won't forget. Here's how it went down. To start things out, I live in a cul-de-sac and it's honestly nothing fancy. It's just your average neighborhood that you would find pretty much anywhere. My driveway fits 2 cars perfectly, namely mine mine and my husband's car. And for the most part, everyone here just minds their own business except for my neighbor, who for the sake of the story we'll call Jack. For whatever reason, he thinks my driveway is like extra parking for his family and friends. The first time it happened, I thought it was a mistake. His brother's car was in there, and he said it'll just take a second. Well, a week later, it was some friends of his dropping something off. I didn't love it, but I figured whatever, nothing worth making it awkward. But here's the thing, it just kept happening. I would come home from work completely wiped out as I work as a nurse, and I would find a random car blocking my driveway. One night, I literally had to park halfway down the street and then carry 5 bags of groceries because his buddy's truck was in my spot. Every single time I've said something, he would do that half smile and go, "Oh yeah, sorry, they'll be gone soon," like I'm the one being difficult instead of him. But eventually, I hit the final straw that broke my back. I get home late Friday night after a 12-hour shift. I'm still in my scrubs, I'm starving, and I've got takeout that's already getting cold in the passenger seat. And that's when I see it. Boom, the giant white SUV just parked dead center in my driveway, not even off to one side, like full on blocking me from even pulling in. I knock on the door and I get no answer, so I then decide to call Jack, and when he finally picks up, he has this super casual attitude where he says, "Oh yeah, that's my in-laws. They'll only be there for a couple of hours. Just park on the street, it's not a big deal." And when he said that, that was it for me. I decided right then and there I was calling a tow truck. And yes, I checked beforehand. Where I live, if someone blocks your private driveway, you are absolutely allowed to tow them immediately. The tow guy showed up in 20 minutes, and this stupid SUV was gone before I even finished half my fries. Well, about an hour later, I was alerted to furious pounding on my door. Jack was beet red and his in-laws are yelling in the background. And this guy's literally going off about how I didn't have to take it that far, but I just said to him, "Look, you told me it wasn't a big deal." So I treated it like it wasn't, and then I closed the door right in his face. They had to pay almost $300 just to get their car back. And funny enough, ever since then, my driveway has stayed crystal clear, which is exactly how it should have been from the very beginning. Oh dude, I love this so much. I've dealt with neighbors stealing my spots before when I've lived in like different condos or apartments, and unfortunately, in all the places I've lived, you can't tow someone like that, so like this is super cathartic. Oh my god. I am in love with the fact that you got back at Jack. Because seriously, this guy's a jerk. Not only did he not ask you first about using the driveway, but he also tried to be like, "Oh come on, it's not that big of a deal. They'll be gone in a few hours, don't worry about it." But guess what? It is a big deal. This is your driveway. This is not some public spot. Why can't his in-laws or friends park on the street? Why do they have to take up your spot in your driveway? So truly, as someone who has dealt with this exact same scenario, the way you handled this was beautiful and incredibly cathartic. Because I know if I was in your shoes, I would have loved to do the exact same thing. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I allowed my unemployed father to move in with me, and I'm now realizing this was the biggest mistake of my life. Because at this point, he's making my life a living nightmare, and I seriously just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I want to start off by saying that I've not lived with my dad since I was 14 years old. My mom and I left him, but then she passed away of cancer just a couple of years later when I was 17 years old. This devastated him, and he began to drink heavily. When my mother passed, I was the sole inheritor of the family home. I lived there for a couple of years, and as you can imagine, it was a pleasure to have the space to myself as a young adult. I tried to connect the dots with my dad, my only remaining family, but his drinking problem was too severe to have a civil relationship. In 2023, my dad became unemployed after he injured himself drunk on the job. He continued his bender until he fell and sustained head injuries alone by himself. In fact, I found him helpless on the floor. I took him to the hospital and he successfully detoxed. Now, when he was discharged, he asked if he could stay in my spare bedroom, saying that if he had to go back to his apartment alone, he would resume recklessly drinking. Now, at this point, I was peacefully living by myself. I never wanted to live with my dad ever again, but I had just come so close to losing him, my only family. I couldn't bear the thought, so he moved in, and he promised that he would get a new job very soon. But then the entitlement revealed itself. He does not treat me like an adult roommate, but rather like a teenager who he has authority over. He lectures me endlessly, attempts to micromanage my day, and acts like the head of the household. No regard for how I prefer to do things around my own home. He never stops parenting, as if I'm 15 years old again. While I pay for his food, his luxuries, expenses, and pretty much everything, he happily lives off of my savings. And I really think he sees it as the family money and in some way thinks it's his. Well, naturally, I began to frequently snap and show anger, but he doubled double down, acting like I was a petulant, defiant teenager who needed to be reined in. If I speak to him about these problems, he tells me outright that I'm crazy, that I make problems up, and that I'm unstable. He even starts the strangest arguments and uses them as proof that I'm not rational. He doesn't have any friends or contacts. I am literally his only social outlet. He also doesn't leave the house except to go to the grocery store. He talks at length about anything and everything at high volumes, with little care for how the person responds. If he sees or hears me doing anything in the house, he will run over and ask as many questions as possible. He will carry on endlessly until you have to rudely cut him off, and then both people are upset. I no longer enjoy spending time in my own house. He drains every ounce of my energy just for himself. Now, obviously, I want him to leave, but he has nowhere else to go. He refuses to be self-sufficient, and I genuinely believe he will do something terrible to himself if I make him leave. And that kind of guilt will ruin me. He says it's this or I'm just totally on my own, and it's my choice between complete enmeshment and complete abandonment. I honestly regret the way this has turned out to be, and at this point, I seriously just don't know what to do. Yeah, this sounds like a nightmare. I'm sure in the moment where you found your dad knocked out on the floor, you had some compassion and you're like, okay, maybe I'll help him out this one time. But I'm willing to bet you definitely never expected this. Like seriously, you thought he was gonna actually pick his life up and get things together, but no, he's taking advantage of you and saying, well, if I don't have this, I'm on my own. And it's like, dude, maybe you should be on your own. You're clearly not doing anything with your life, and you're taking advantage of the original poster and their home. So hopefully this works out for you, because like this really does suck, and I can completely understand why you would say this is a mistake, because it really seems like it definitely was. Am I the jerk for immediately requesting a room change after my roommate told me her rules about who I can have in the apartment? Because right now I am devastated by the things she said to me, and at this point I really just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I'm a 21-year-old female getting my medical degree and living in a mature student housing complex. The setup is a 2-bedroom apartment with a shared kitchen and a bathroom. My roommate moved out over the summer, so I was reassigned a few weeks ago, and I moved into a new room with a new roommate who is a woman in her mid-20s from Persia. I've been here a few weeks now, but I've only really spoken to her a few times cordially. She's either out in class or working, or she's in a room as I am, with neither of us occupying any common areas, so we don't really cross paths that often. Well, this long weekend, my fiancé, who I've dated for 7 years, finally came and visited me. He lives in a different part of the country, 5 hours away from me by car, since I moved here for school, and he wanted to keep his job while I'm studying since I will come back home when I'm done. Now, my ground rules for visitors are as follows. Stay in my room at all times unless going to the bathroom, and if we leave my room, which is usually only to leave the apartment and go out at all, they will always be directly accompanied by me. The university approves overnight guests for up to 4 nights a month, as long as they follow all of the rules. On the second day of his visit, my roommate took me aside and told me that she didn't expect my guests would be male, and she's uncomfortable with men being present in the apartment. Well, I explained that he was my fiancé, so I promised that he was a safe man, but I also understood feeling scared about strange men, so I would ensure that he stayed only in my room and didn't interact with her at all. But she said it wasn't a matter of being concerned for safety or anything like that, but rather that she is uncomfortable with a man being present at all in the home, regardless of familiarity. She said that she's never had a roommate in all 4 years of living here who has ever had a male guest. Well, she then told me that I needed to send him home. And when she said this, I was quite taken aback. And of course I said no, I wouldn't be able to send him home, since he drove from 5 hours away to visit me for the weekend. She said to me, fine, he's able to stay until the weekend's over, but after this, no more male guests are to return to this apartment. I asked if this included family members like my dad, my brothers, or my male best friend of 15 years, and she said yes, this applies to all men. She is uncomfortable with any men being in the apartment at any time. So basically, if I'm gonna have a guest in the apartment, they must only be female. I tried to reason a bit more, but she said it is a hardline boundary for her that no males can ever be in the apartment. At this point, I was getting very flustered, so I exited the conversation and immediately have gotten to work with the university on requesting a room change. I do understand it may be a cultural misalignment between us, as she is from a country where men and women are usually much more segregated, but for me, as a woman who is close with a lot of men in her life, I feel this is a fundamental incompatibility between us, and out of respect for her boundary, I feel it's best if I just leave. I have been extremely stressed out since this conversation, as I am now just on a baseline level very uncomfortable with this dynamic. So seriously, am I overreacting here? Should I have tried to talk this out more before jumping immediately to asking for a room change? Because right now I'm honestly not sure what to do. Okay, maybe this is just like the defiant person in me, but I know if I was in your shoes, I would be like, no, I can have whoever I want over here whenever I want. Especially if you know for a fact it's like, oh yeah, this is my fiance, or this is my dad or my brother. Like, dude, you can't police who can and can't be here. Especially if you're not breaking any university rules, like get a grip. But thankfully, I'm not in this situation because I'm pretty sure my roommate would be the one to move out instead of me. Personally, I don't think you did anything wrong and you probably shouldn't even have to move out. But in that same vein of thought, I don't blame you for being like, yeah, I gotta get out of here. There's obviously some kind of like cultural barrier here that you can't see eye to eye on. And honestly, that's completely fine. For me, the biggest red flag and the reason why I would be so annoyed is the way she tried to like literally be like, no, this is the way it is. Because last I checked, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but she definitely doesn't own that apartment. And in my opinion, if you're not breaking the university rules, then there's no issues here. So no, I don't think you're overreacting by being like, okay, I gotta get out of here. I don't want to deal with this. But also, you do not have to listen to her at all because you literally haven't done anything wrong. And if she doesn't like who you're bringing over, then that's honestly her problem to deal with and not yours. Am I the jerk for supposedly ruining my cousin's wedding after my ex-boyfriend's wife came up to me and started berating me, saying that my ex no longer cares about me? Because after realizing she was just trying to start a fight with me, I left just to avoid conflict. But my cousin is equating this to me ruining her wedding. And at this point, I'm honestly so frustrated that I just don't know what to do. Here's how it all went down. Okay, I'm gonna try and keep it brief because I genuinely feel like I'm being gaslit by everyone, but also maybe I'm not seeing my own role in this situation. In university, I had a very brief sort of relationship with a guy on my course, and I ended the relationship because I felt like I needed to learn independence. I've never lived on my own, and my mom and dad coddled me and paid for my expenses, they cooked for me, they did my laundry, etc. He was looking to settle down, and I honestly just really wasn't. I wanted to learn to be on my own for a bit, and he wanted to marry someone that he could take care of. So we went our separate ways, finished university, got jobs, and just kind of moved on. Well, my cousin got married the other day, and this guy I was previously talking to attended with his wife, and she also attended our university and was on the same course. Now, I wasn't really fussed by seeing them. I mean, they've clearly moved on, and I'm loving life right now. I'm having that independence that I've always been wanting. Everything is really chill until his wife comes up to our table. She asked me why she didn't see me at graduation, and for context, I didn't attend our graduation ceremony because both of my grandmothers had passed away and it was their funeral. I didn't really care about missing graduation because I've got horrible social anxiety anyways, and the thought of being seen by that many people really freaked me out. She then asked about my career, and I told her that I'm in teaching now and I absolutely love it. And we were literally just exchanging small pleasantries, I think you get it. But she randomly veered the conversation in a much different direction. She then said to me, my husband doesn't care about you at all anymore. And I really wasn't bothered at all because over the few years since we were together, I started to see just how toxic he was. He was controlling and he wanted me to ask his permission before seeing my own friends. Now, I was not looking to start an argument at my cousin's wedding, so I just walked away from them and I sat at my other cousin's table. Now, I don't know how, but she actually found me again at some other point of the reception and it got really weird. She was saying things like, you are so jealous of us. You actually skipped graduation because you didn't want to see us together. But honestly, I didn't even know they were together. But when she said this, I didn't even bother to explain myself. It would have been pointless as she'd already made up her mind about me. Instead, I just nodded along as she ranted at me. But as you would expect, it started to take attention away from the wedding. At this point, I decided it would probably be best to go home, so I just gave my gifts and I left. But my cousin messaged me a few days later, angry at me for starting fights at the wedding. I then straight up told her I wasn't looking for any fights. That girl approached me every single time, but she told me that it was my fault for leading him on in the first place. I explained it was a long time ago. I was only 19 at the time, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life, let alone commit to marrying a guy. So am I being dumb or is this actually my fault? Did I ruin the wedding? What should I do? No, you didn't ruin the wedding. This is so dumb. The wife is clearly jealous of you and like afraid or intimidated by you, which is like the only reason she came up to you and said, you know, my husband doesn't care about you, which like good, he shouldn't care about me at all. He's married to you, lady. Like, what are you talking about? And it's honestly so stupid that she's trying to be like, oh, you're jealous of us. You skipped graduation because you can't stand us being together. Like, I don't know about you, but that is like some desperate energy and she really needs to check herself. So for your cousin to sit there and be like, you ruined my wedding, you're causing commotion, you're literally starting arguments arguments. You led this guy on. Like, not only is your cousin an idiot, but also that is just blatantly untrue. You walked away every single time this moron tried to approach you, and you tried to keep quiet by literally saying nothing. You didn't even have an argument. This lady started all of this in some kind of like desperate plea to be like, we have a loving relationship. But it's like, do you have a good relationship? Because anyone who has a good relationship wouldn't be this desperate to go up to someone's ex and be like, we're so happy together. Stop being so jealous. Oh my God. So no, you're not the jerk. You didn't do anything wrong. And if your cousin really thinks you ruined their wedding, then honestly, they're an idiot and they have no idea what they're talking about. Am I the jerk for shouting at my mom for selling my things that she agreed I could store at her apartment for the time being? Because right now, somehow this is being twisted against me, and at this point, I just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, for a bit of context, I'm a 21-year-old female, and I've been moved out of my parents' house for a little over 2 years now. I rent this apartment a while away from their house, which they own, and is way bigger than my own place. Now, this was helpful when I realized after moving into my new place that I barely had any space for all my stuff. When speaking to my mom about this, she said I could use the house as a storage space, which was convenient as I could come by whenever I needed, so I agreed. But things started going wrong last Christmas. I came by to get some decorations I had stored there to use at my apartment, only to find out that my mom had sold them online. She said very cheerfully that she chose it because she didn't think it had any significance to me, and that I would not have minded if it was gone. And while I was bothered, I quickly just let it go. Then a few months later, I would stop by for some clothing I had stashed, only to then find them missing again. And this happened multiple times. Every time I asked about it, she said she had either sold it online or that she had let a friend borrow it. After a while of dealing with this, I grew pretty agitated. When it happened the last time regarding some very expensive shoes, I just blew up. I shouted at her for taking my belongings and selling them without my consent, all while she stood there and cried. Her response was that I had kept them in the house for so long that she felt it simply couldn't have been important to me, and that had she had known, she wouldn't have done it. She also said that it clearly didn't matter enough, as I chose to keep it in my parents' house, which was her property, and so it was hers to deal with. Now, in my rage, I didn't realize that she was padding around for her inhaler, as my mother has severe asthma, and she started coughing terribly. To this, I slammed my hand on the wall in anger, and I left only before telling my dad that she needed her inhaler. Well, now my brother, my dad, and some relatives, and even a few friends are saying that I overreacted, and that I'm an apathetic materialist who care more about my clothing than my mom's health and well-being. I feel like I had every right to be angry, but now I'm honestly questioning myself. So am I the jerk here? Because right now I seriously just don't know what to do. Dude, there is no way you're the jerk here. Your mom agreed to allow you to store your stuff at her place, not for her to rifle through it and slowly start to sell it off. Like, what's going on right now? How is this in any way, shape, or form being twisted against you? So no, you're not the jerk here. This is so dumb. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would find a storage unit and put all my stuff there, because clearly your mom can't be trusted with any of your property, as she's probably just gonna try and like sell it off in some kind of way. An entitled Karen is seething with rage after she feels I didn't park my car good enough in the spots we were occupying. But despite the fact that I got video evidence that she was the one parking over the line, I decided to do nothing to fix her dilemma, choosing instead to walk away, leaving her in a seething rage. Here's how I did it. Okay, so I was going to the grocery store and I see two spots available right next to each other. Now this was a score because this particular store doesn't have too many spaces that are close to the entrance, all due to the weird parking lot footprint. As I'm about to pull in, a woman coming from the other side wants to pull into one of the spots, so I just wave her on. It was no big deal because there were two spots, so after she pulls in, I pull into the other spot on the driver's side right next to her. Now I am pretty good at parking my car, but after I pull in, she gives me a very dirty look, and she then gestures to the door or the ground, I mean something like that, because I'm not really sure what she's doing. My assumption is that she thinks that there isn't much room for her to get out. Now since I was in a good mood, I back up and I move my car over just a little bit more, but despite that, I still am staying within the lines. But I still get the same reaction from the woman as before, but with an added exaggerated sigh. Not letting this grump ruin my day or dampen my sparkle, I decide to move the car over another few inches. When I get into the spot, not only did I get the dirty look and the sigh again, but this time she added an eye roll as well. Now I get enough of those from the teenagers in my life, and my sparkle is in danger of getting dampened at this point. So what am I to do in this situation? Well, I got out of my car to inspect the placement of the parking job. I'm pretty close to the car next to me on my driver's side, but there is a person sitting in the passenger seat that was apparently watching this interaction, so I figure they weren't planning on getting out anyways. When I look on the other side of my car where the grumpy woman was, her car was actually a few centimeters over the line, and she's also craning her head back to see what I'm doing. And at this point, I have a decision to make, so I make it quick. I get back into my car, and at this point, she is saying something probably incredibly not nice to me and gesturing her hands for me to speed up, I'm assuming. I tell her to calm down as best I can with hand gestures, and I pull my car back out a third time. This time, I move my car towards her car, so I am perfectly in the middle of my spot. Because guess what? This was never my fault in the first place. I get out, I take a picture of both of our cars and her license plate, and she winds her window down and rudely asks me where I think I'm going. The passenger in the other car next to me calls out to get my attention and says to me, "Are you going to answer me? You need to move your car." I then look at the passenger trying to get my attention, and he says to me, "Screw that. Some people just can't be pleased." I then look at this idiot and I say what he said, pointing to the passenger in the other car. I then proceeded to walk by him, and I was really happy as I walked into the store while she sat there like a giant angry turd seething with rage. Okay, I love this so much because that lady was 100% in the wrong. Like, it's bad enough that you had to get out of your car and like look for it and then readjust it 3 times, but the fact that this was all her fault, in my opinion, makes this even more enraging. Like, seriously, come on, lady, this is absolutely not the original poster's fault. You're parking outside the line and trying to act like, wow, you need to move over for me. When it's like, no, dude, you need to move over. You're being so obnoxious about it, it's so annoying. So good for you for putting that car exactly in the middle of your spot, because if anyone's gonna move their car, it absolutely is gonna be this Karen. My toxic entitled coworkers treat me like garbage in some kind of desperate attempt to make me quit my job so one of them can take it over. So I decided to get some revenge by literally flipping the script, as I chose to be the happiest person in the entire office, driving these 2 coworkers insane, with one of them eventually quitting right there on the spot. Here's how I did it. So I was working at a job where I had 2 coworkers, and their job position was intended to partially support mine, and partially they worked independently as well. And in the scope of my job, I reported directly to the manager. Now, these 2 gals were absolutely nasty and decided to try and get me fired because one of them wanted my position. They kept running to the manager with frivolous complaints about me and constantly undermined my work by not doing the support work. In addition to this, 2 other people left at the same time, so pretty soon I was overwhelmed. I was overworked, I was miserable, and I was working what felt like 3 jobs instead of 1. The more miserable I got, the more visibly happy they were. And I would get even more sad because I once thought of these gals as friends. I felt like I was carrying so much weight on my shoulders, feeling unsupported by my manager, being attacked by these women who were once my friends, and just physically and emotionally overwhelmed with so much work. I was running myself ragged and really letting go of my appearance, and just overall looked really frazzled. One day I was sitting in my apartment crying, thinking about the smirks on their faces when I left that day, and then I thought to myself, wait a minute, if they are so happy seeing me miserable, then the opposite must be true. What if they saw me happy instead of sad? Well, the next day I woke up, I combed my hair, I wore makeup, I put on the nicest clean clothes that I had, and then I went to my job and pranced in with a huge smile on my face like I was on cloud 9. I then chatted happily with one of my favorite coworkers loudly, who just so happened to be sitting next to one of the other 2 women. I then watched those gals out of the corner of my eye, and they exchanged a wide-eye look that basically said, oh no, we're doomed. Well, fast forward to the next week, and they tried again their very best to annoy me. One of them kept interrupting me constantly, unnecessarily, and every single time I just gushed with smiles and gratitude. And let me tell you something, the disappointment on their face was downright hilarious. I enjoyed smiling at them every time I passed by, saying over the top, sweetly please and thank you, and acting so incredibly considerate towards them every chance that I got. And you know what? It drove them insane. And pretty soon, they were looking terrified and miserable. It became fairly apparent that they thought I had some kind of secret discussion with the manager. And at one point, one of the gals had an outburst and went and yelled at the manager, saying, "You're just gonna fire me anyways." Well, you know what? That's exactly what happened. She did get fired. And it was not because I said anything to the manager. It was only because she couldn't handle me being happy. In fact, the other one was so scared that she went silent right after that. Well, eventually I left that job because the management sucked, but I'm seriously in awe of just how much appearing to be happy and being super nice affected them so much. I got to make them as miserable as they made me, without ever having to be actually unkind to them in the way that they were to me. And that honestly makes this entire situation very much worth it. Okay, I love this because this is honestly so true. People like the 2 coworkers in this, like, they're the kind of person who would be like, oh, I want to make your life as miserable as possible. They're intentionally not doing their job, they're making it so like you have all this work to do, and they're basically just trying to like ruin your life, and that is so miserable. It's like, dude, I just want to show up to work and like do my job and then go home and get paid and make rent and all that stuff. The last thing I need on my plate is some idiot trying to be like, oh, well, I'm gonna make it so you can't do anything right. Because dude, you literally negatively affect the original poster and their ability to get their stuff stuff done. So I love the fact that you killed them with kindness because that really is a real thing. If you just go in it and even fake it just a little bit, this will literally drive them crazy. So honestly, I love the way you did this, and I think the fact that these people literally got put in their place, with one of them even quitting, in my opinion, makes this whole situation absolutely hilarious. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My sister-in-law is living with us rent-free, but honestly, I'm so sick of dealing with her because her attitude and demeanor is so condescending that it's making me question if I even want to stay here any longer. Here's what's going on. To start things out, I'm a 26-year-old female, and I wanted to get some stuff off of my chest about my sister-in-law, who's living with my parents and I, and with her 4-year-old daughter. Not only is she rent-free, but my parents are paying for her each month. I feel that she is an entitled parent and that I'm in the right, but I keep second-guessing myself, so I just wanted some opinions. Our family situation is extremely out of the ordinary, but I'll try to summarize. My brother is a paranoid schizophrenic with intense anger issues and violent tendencies. I always knew he shouldn't be a parent, but he ended up inviting us to a wedding 10 days before it to a woman that I had never met and my parents only met like one time. And actually, at the wedding itself, my other brother and I found out that she was pregnant. Well, it turns out my brother was a deadbeat who ended up abandoning his wife and daughter a week or so after she was born. He had a psychotic break, he left his job and rode his motorcycle all around the country multiple times, along with countless other reckless behaviors. Now, obviously, I felt horrible for my sister-in-law. I've been in light contact with her and the daughter over the years, and I liked her well enough. Her daughter is an absolute ray of sunshine who cracks up laughing every time I talk to her, and we have lots of fun together. Now, my sister-in-law is an immigrant who doesn't have citizenship. Her education from her home country is not considered here, so she's bounced between many very low-paying jobs. Now, I have felt very sympathetic to hear her situation, and I have tried to help out when I can over the years, as long as it doesn't sacrifice my own mental health and well-being, which I already struggle with a lot as it is. My sister-in-law has many family members living in the United States, some local and some in other areas of the country, and before moving to my parents' house, she has tried living in at least 3 different places with members of her family. Now, my parents and I always wanted to take her in, but we were dealing with my brother living with us and refusing to work and find his own place. He has this huge resentment towards his wife based on delusions that she is not the woman he once knew, and was somehow replaced with some kind of agent that was sent to like ruin his life and steal his money. He thinks his daughter isn't his despite heavy resemblance and a DNA test, and even refused to pay child support for a long time before my parents and the courts were able to get him to do so. Now, I've been bullied and terrorized by my brother my entire life, and it's only gotten much worse in recent years. I was finally able to break free from him in October after having to call the cops to take him away to the ward again because he was smacking my parents in the face, saying he was going to take them out, if you know what I mean, while also almost starting a fire in the garage and destroyed numerous things, including one layer of a glass door that shattered all over the basement floor. Now, I decided to move out because my parents were open to taking him back when he was out, but I never want to see him again, or else I think I might go into psychosis myself. Luckily, he ended up moving to his own place since my parents offered to give him $1,000 a month, and then my sister-in-law and her daughter moved into my parents' house. Last month, I was struggling with my mental health and difficult coworkers and bosses, and I ended up leaving my job and decided to move back to my parents. But now, after living with my sister-in-law, I have come to strongly dislike her. The only way she would talk to me would be to go on long-winded monologues offering me advice I was visibly uninterested in, and on top of that, she simply didn't listen to a word that I had to say. I still hung out with her daughter, but I decided to stop talking to my sister-in-law because I didn't like to. I still didn't have a problem living with her until she started saying many smug, passive-aggressive things to myself and my parents, and questioning the way I do things, such as the way that I brush my teeth, or asking me why I'm using certain bathrooms and stuff like that. Now, for her daughter's birthday, I had bought her an over $100 tricycle that she loves, and she has some trouble pedaling, but she's learning. I went to the park with my sister-in-law and her daughter one day, and my sister-in-law said, "Do you still have the receipt to this tricycle? You should return it. She can't use it. And I read bad reviews online. I want a different one." And I was pretty annoyed by this, but I still just shrugged it off. My mom also bought her daughter a kitchen playset, and the daughter told my mom that her mom said that she should have gotten a bigger one. The next day, my sister-in-law's daughter and I were playing with my cat, and we were just having fun making cat noises. Well, my sister-in-law then says, "Oh, stay away from that cat," and then turned to me and said, "I don't want her saying that." And she's literally talking about her daughter saying meow over and over again. So I decided to spend some time alone, and I just went to the basement. Well, her daughter wanted to follow me down and really wanted to hang out with me, so I decided to turn on SpongeBob, which was something that we could both enjoy while I used my laptop. Well, not even 5 minutes had gone by getaway before my sister-in-law calls her daughter back upstairs. I didn't hear everything, but I did hear the daughter start crying. They were basically screaming that they wanted to keep watching SpongeBob with me. She then asked her mom if we could watch something else together, but she never came back, so I'm guessing that was a no. Even after all of this, I just decided to ignore my sister-in-law, and I just kept to myself except when her daughter follows me around or engages with me. But eventually, I couldn't stand it any longer, especially when my sister-in-law decided to scold me directly in my own home. I was nervous because my dad and I were just about to start a Zoom call in a minute, and I was drying my hair while my dad was yelling to me to go get my charger. At the same time, the daughter is following me all around, asking me about each move that I make and saying to me, "Oh, can I join?" Literally just speaking a million miles a minute. And this is completely fine. I know kids do that, but I think they should be taught boundaries. So I said to her, "Yes, but we are about to start a call, so please be quiet." Well, when I said that, my sister-in-law runs over and says, "Don't say be quiet to her like that." She then grabs her daughter and rushes her back to their room and says, "I'm having her stay with her aunt tomorrow." Well, fast forward to the next day, and they were gone the entire day and didn't even come back until midnight. None of us saw a sign of them all day. Ever since this happened a couple of weeks ago, my sister-in-law and I no longer talk, except a few days ago when she was criticizing my mom, telling her that she does things wrong. I then joined the conversation really upset, and we both were like, "Okay, well, what did we do wrong?" To which she replied by saying, "You know what you did," and then refused to tell us exactly what we did. She tells me that I have no control over my emotions, and again, I said, "Okay, well, what did I do?" She then gets this really accusatory look in her eyes and says to me, "You don't know what you did? You told my child to be quiet. That is wrong. You know you are wrong. And now you are still mad about that? I actually feel bad for your brother because I saw you talking to him like this too before." She then said many other very insulting things to me, and after that had the audacity to start crying and tell me that I should feel bad for her in her situation and what my brother did to her, while also saying that I had no idea what it's like to move to another country, how she's developed an illness from her pregnancy, and all this other stuff. There's a lot more than this, but honestly, overall, I'm so sick of this and I seriously just don't know what to do. Okay, seriously, anybody living under someone else's house rent-free has got to have a better attitude than this, because literally, they're not paying a single dime when it comes to like supporting themselves. So with all things considered, I don't blame you for being frustrated. If I was living under these circumstances with someone who's clearly ungrateful for what they've been given, I would also be pretty pissed off. So hopefully some kind of solution comes about from this, because this sounds like a miserable existence. My mom is coming to visit me in South Korea after I literally moved away just to get away from her. And right now, I really want to tell her that I don't want her showing up. Here's what's going on. Okay, I want to start off by saying that my mother is determined to come and see me. For just a little bit of context, I moved to South Korea 10 years ago to get away. I renounced citizenship of my country, and I thought that this way she could never make me go back. That worked for me, but now she wants to come here. She came once many years ago, and I did not handle it well. I don't think she noticed too much was wrong, but I had support then that I just don't have anymore. We have issues from my childhood that I know I need therapy to address, but I simply can't afford it. I've also tried to ask artificial intelligence, which told me, okay, you need to stop holding yourself responsible for your mother's emotional state, which really was a slap in the face. And as a side note, she doesn't know that she's the source of any issues. She thinks she's never done anything wrong in her life. And you know what? I know this might be the last chance we have to see each other before one of us passes away, but never being able to see her again would be completely fine with me. I mean, it's already been a decade since we last saw each other, but there's still that annoying biological instinct of, oh, this is your mother. You can play nice for 1 week. You're an adult. Act like it. I have time before the visit, and I'm honestly so stressed. I might try to see what expenses I can cut to try and afford a therapist either way, but I also just want to say no. So would it be okay to say, I know you're looking forward to the trip, but, and then say that I don't want her coming along? But honestly, I don't even know what to follow up with that. I could say something like, oh, I'm really stressed out and I know it's early on, but I don't think it'll work, but honestly, I've got nothing. And what if I don't say no? What if she comes and I end up breaking down and saying or doing something horrible to her face? Way worse than if I just said no. I'm honestly at such a loss because right now I seriously just don't know what to do. Okay, seriously, if your mom has really caused this many problems in your life, then just say no. Tell her, hey, this is not gonna work out, I don't want you to visit, and I'm really sorry, but it's just not gonna work. And then just be done with it. For context, the original poster is 30 years old, and I totally understand this is like really stressful and you do have that instinct of like, oh no, but it's my mom. But also, you deserve to have peace. And if your mom is causing you that much trouble, then dude, absolutely say no. You're not obligated for her to come and visit, and you definitely do not have to entertain that, especially if this is someone who's caused you a lot of turmoil. Am I the jerk for refusing to reimburse my friend for a chair that broke under my weight literally while we were at a house party? Because right now, I really think she's just trying to fat shame me, and at this point, I really just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. So I was at a friend's house for a game night this past weekend with a group of about 6 people. Everyone brought food and drinks and we were having a really good time when about halfway through the night, I got up to use the bathroom. When I came back, I saw that one of the girls had moved from a chair to the side to my space on the couch. Now this didn't bug me as people shuffle around in groups, so it's whatever. The chair was an antique wooden chair that sat a bit lower to the ground with an added back and butt cushion. Well, when I sat down, it immediately broke, sending me to the ground with the seat under me and the arm frames falling to the side. Everyone got quiet for a second before jumping up to help me. I wasn't hurt, I was just a little bit embarrassed. For context, I'm a bigger girl, about 260 pounds, and I'm about 5'7". My friend was very gracious and nice about it when it happened, accepting my apologies and telling me not to worry. Her boyfriend said that the chair was his grandmother's, and it has fallen apart before and he was able to repair it. I was then ushered back to the couch and game night continued. Well, fast forward to the next morning and I received a text from my friend who let me know that the chair couldn't be put back together and that from her research, it would cost about $250 to get a new one. She then said she would let me know how much when she found one. Now, when they told me this, I was a bit taken aback and I responded confused, asking why I would be expected to pay for a faulty chair. She then said, while yes, on occasion the frames would become unattached and cause it to fall apart, but apparently that's not what happened this time. She then sent me pictures of the broken chair, particularly a bent support and 2 other broken supports. She said that the chair broke under my weight and couldn't be fixed, and since the chair was an antique from her boyfriend's late grandmother, she wanted a new one for him. I responded that the chair was very old and had a history of collapsing. If they were really that concerned about preserving it, they should not have had it out for people to use, and $250 for a chair that I sat in for 1 second seems a bit ridiculous. At this point, she seemingly got frustrated and said that she loves me but that I'm her biggest friend, and that it would not have happened to anyone else. She said to me, "It broke from your weight plopping down all at once, not because the frame was loose. I think it's only fair you reimburse us for the chair since you're responsible for breaking it." So right now, I'm still figuring out how to respond. I don't want to pay her for something that I don't see as being completely my fault. I also think that she's using this scenario to shame me about my weight a bit, which I find really frustrating. My friends' opinions are mixed, and a few are saying that I should just pay her and move on, even if it's not exactly my fault. One person thinks it's my fault and says that I should pay up, and a few more think that she's in the wrong for asking and that I should continue to politely decline. So with all things considered, am I the jerk for refusing to pay for this chair? Because right now I just don't know what to do. Dude, if that was me, there's no way I would ever pay for that chair. No, you're not the jerk because this is honestly insane in my opinion. Because first of all, you said the thing I was thinking the entire time. This friend is using this situation to shame you that you're just a little bit heavier. And that's not fair at all. Like, in my opinion, that's messed up. It's crazy to me that they think they can try and talk to you like this and be like, yeah, you broke it because you're the biggest person in the room. You're my biggest friend and no one else would do that if they sat in it. But it's like, okay, well, if you didn't want people to sit in it, then why was it out in the open for people to sit on? Like, if this is really worth $250 and it's some kind of like antique chair, then maybe treat it that way and put it somewhere safe. Don't use it for a party that people are getting up and down from. And who's to say that your weight would have caused it to collapse and not somebody else? From the sounds of it, this stupid chair was like really rickety anyways. So it's like, okay, anyone could have made that drop. And I would argue even some of the skinniest people in the room could have made that thing fall apart. Like, it just does not sound structurally secure at all, and I just don't think this is your fault. So no, I would never pay for that chair, and I would definitely never pay $250 to anyone talking to me like that, because I really think she is just trying to fat shame you, and that is not fair in the slightest. My managers are micromanaging me and being very condescending and passive-aggressive anytime I make any kind of mistake in my job. And I'm at a point where I seriously am not sure if I need to find another job because this feels incredibly targeted. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I've been working at a new restaurant for about a month or two, and today was really rough. One of my managers has been kind of difficult since day one, really condescending, passive-aggressive, and very nitpicky. And I've honestly felt targeted by him a lot. He kept telling me to do things throughout my shift, but not in a normal way, almost like he was barking orders very rudely in a way that made me feel dumb and incompetent. Now, to give some credit, I've served at my previous restaurant for almost 2 years where we had no food runners and were pretty much left to fend for ourselves. This job has food runners, which only made the new point of sale system more challenging. And overall, I think I've done pretty well managing tables. Now, it wasn't really the exact thing that he said. Instead, it was the tone and the delivery that made me feel like I couldn't do anything right. At one point, he asked if I was okay because I seemed annoyed every time he corrected me. me. But honestly, I wasn't being happy-go-lucky with him because I wasn't tolerating being mansplained by a 40-something-year-old man as a young woman. I was clearly annoyed by the way he was talking to me, but I tried to stay calm. When he asked me if I was bothered, I said not really and that I was fine, and then I just kind of walked away. Later, one of my tables became challenging, and there was a small mistake with the food. And mind you, it wasn't fully the food runner's fault or fully mine. I assumed the runner handled it, and I just didn't double check. I take responsibility for that oversight, but I also feel like I got blamed more than what was fair. And it honestly just all felt like a ripple effect. The general manager and another manager called me into the office to talk through my shift. They told me I needed to make sure that the guests get their food and that I shouldn't make mistakes like that ever again. They also told me that I don't look approachable and commented on my attitude. I then started crying at the beginning because I was so overwhelmed and embarrassed. Afterwards, I signed a coaching form acknowledging the conversation. At this point, I feel like I'm being singled out, especially since the other servers all hang out with the managers and seem completely fine. I don't know if my reserved personality makes me stand out or if the rude manager just has it out for me, but it's been a really stressful day. Coming from my attitude and claiming I'm unapproachable felt like a low blow. I've made friends with other servers, I'm welcoming and friendly, but I'm not the type to be super friendly with or even kiss up to any of the managers. I will be polite and respectful when needed, but honestly nothing more, and I simply won't fake it just to abide by their expectations. I've never had a problem like this at other jobs. Sure, there have been issues, but nothing to this extent. I'm conflicted and I'm honestly not sure what to do here because this really is incredibly annoying. Okay, I hate to be the person to tell you this, but they are 100% targeting you. I've been through this situation before, like I literally feel like that guy from Squid Games where I'm like, I've played these games before, because this is exactly what happened to me. It seems like everybody else can get away with stuff, but you're the only person under a microscope. And honestly, I think it boils down to the fact that they simply don't like you. And I'm sure you're a great coworker, like you just do your job and you're doing the best you can, and yet even though you're performing well and you're doing everything you're supposed to, they still just simply don't like you. And they're still trying to find every reason under the sun not to like give you any credit or at least try to like pick you apart. So yeah, if I was in your shoes, I would be finding another job. You do not need this kind of energy because these people suck and you can do way better than this. My entitled ex-boyfriend literally makes my life miserable as he spreads false rumors about me just to try and make me look bad after we broke up. So I decided to get some revenge by doing the exact same thing, only this time I told the truth, exposing him for the narcissist piece of garbage that he is, resulting in his entire friend group turning their back on him. And I've honestly never felt more satisfied because this guy absolutely deserved it. Here's how it all went down. Okay, so after me and my ex broke up, he made my life miserable. I'm talking about contacting my friends and my sister just to talk garbage about me after I blocked him, as well as posting on Reddit about his version of the story and then sending me the links to them amongst other things. It was overall a very messy situation. He had all the traits of a classic narcissist pretending to be this awesome person. He's very woke, he's feminist, he's supportive of all his friends, etc. But in reality, he was a giant piece of crap and hated on everyone, which he used to proudly tell me. Then the opportunity presented itself. His roommate, who I was good friends with at the time, invited me for a birthday celebration. I decided to go primarily to see his cat, who I really loved. The thing about my ex is that he had a very close-knit group of friends who had known each other for more than like 10 years, and all of them were in each other's businesses pretty much all the time. This group also included a female friend of his who I was somewhat close with. Now keep in mind, all of them seem to think that he's some kind of gift to mankind, but it's here that I decided that ended today. So on the day of the party when my ex was getting absolutely plastered, I pulled aside the female friend, the roommate's girlfriend, and another girl in their group, and I laid out everything awful that he had done over the course of this relationship, including bringing another girl to his room at night, all the gaslighting behavior, his behavior after the breakup, etc. I also added his somewhat problematic views regarding feminism and how misogyny is sometimes okay, which really makes me question why I was even with him in the first place. Along with this, I mentioned he criticized all of their relationships and especially not liking the roommate's girlfriend. I also threw in the occasional, "Oh, I've always supported you" as well. And then I left only after eating the cake, of course. Now, the fallout I got to know after a few months through another friend is that all of his friends confronted him, which then led to a huge fight. And he was, to put it lightly, let go from the group. No longer invited to anything, even though he lives in the same house. And now, a few days back, I found out that he's moving away from the city, which honestly was a really cool thing to hear and quite satisfying because this guy made my life incredibly miserable. Okay, yeah, this was some fantastic take revenge. Good for you. It really does suck when you have someone in your life who used to be in your life like full time, walk around and just straight up spread lies about you. And it's stuff like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be the victim here. They were really the problem one. I was just the innocent one. Or just straight up being this awful person and being like, oh yeah, he really didn't like women or pretty much anybody. So good for you for exposing this guy. He absolutely deserved to have all of his sins brought before the universe. Because based on what you described, he does not sound like a good person and he definitely deserved this. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled bride tried to ruin my career, all because I wouldn't hand over all the raw footage that I shot at her wedding, as she literally started spreading rumors and tried to get me blacklisted from my community, putting me in a situation I've never been in my entire life. Here's how it all went down. Okay, to start things out, I work as a videographer. This has been my profession for years, and things usually go smooth because I keep everything in writing and I'm pretty strict about contracts. This particular client booked my basic package for her wedding about 6 months ago, and that's 6 hours of filming, highlight reel, and a short film and nothing more. Now, the wedding itself was stressful enough because she literally kept bossing me around like I was her personal assistant instead of the videographer. But still, I pushed through and I delivered what she paid for on time. But the second she got the final edits, she demanded all the raw footage. I explained again that raw footage isn't included. It's not in the package, neither was it in the contract. And honestly, no professional hands over unedited files unless the client pays extra. They are huge files. There's hours of shaky duplicate shots, and once you hand them over, people use them and then blame you when it looks bad. She then became very aggressive and told me I stole her memories, accused me of trying to ruin her wedding, and said that she was going to trash my name online if I didn't hand them all over. This was also after she had even cried on the phone and tried to guilt trip me, saying that she couldn't relive her big day without every single second that I filmed. It then got very ugly and she shouted, and I eventually just hung up. Then she started posting online that I ruined her wedding video, tagging vendors and trying to blacklist me. Thankfully, most people in the industry know exactly how these situations go, and my contract protects me entirely. But the emotional toll of having someone smear you after you worked your butt off really stings. She paid for a basic package, got exactly what she signed up for, and still acted like I owed her unlimited free work, which honestly was completely unfair. Oh man, I've dealt with this in my own ways, but I can't imagine being contracted for someone's wedding and then they act like this. Seriously, like what's going on right now? You didn't pay for that. You can't just get unedited footage and be like, oh yeah, I need it. My wedding's not the same if I don't have a full documentation of every single minute of it. Because it's like, dude, what are we talking about here? This is such a weird request. Because this lady was out of line and her attitude was just completely ridiculous. An idiotic customer fails to mention that he is allergic to nuts, as we literally served him a drink that had that in there, causing me and my other coworker to go into an absolute frenzy, as we were seriously concerned that we had just ended this guy's life. Here's how it all went down. Okay, so this happened a couple of weeks ago, but my coworker brought it up while we were discussing some of the weirder customers we've served recently, and I simply knew that I just needed to post it here on the internet. For a bit of background information, I work at a speakeasy style nightclub in a small tourist town. We're one of 8 bars within the same few square miles, and each spot is different than the next. Most of them are your traditional dive bars, and very few of them actually make craft cocktails, so people who aren't used to the sheer amount of stuff we offer versus only being able to order just liquor and beer tend to get overwhelmed with all of the options and will usually just order off of our menu. We have a written cocktail menu that has the ingredients under each item, and all the drinks that have possible allergens or raw eggs are starred and have a disclaimer at the bottom. And trust me, this will be very important later on. Now, we typically have zero issues when it comes to customers ordering directly from the menu since it is so descriptive, and we usually ask a bunch of follow-up questions to make sure the drink is made exactly how they want. Sometimes people will ask us to change up a few things, and we're always more than willing to be accommodating. Now, it was a busy weekend that night, and my coworker and I were running around like rats trying to take care of everyone lining up around the bar top. One large group hung around for a few hours, continuously ordering, generally just being chill. A man who was part of this group had only been drinking old fashions and decided that he wanted to try something new. So he scoured the menu and ordered an Amaretto Sour. Keep in mind, this cocktail has a star next to it, so it is listed as having potential allergens and a raw egg. We then asked him if it all looked good to him, and he just requested that we use sweet and sour instead of egg white, and honestly that was no problem. My coworker whips up his sour, he takes a few big swigs and then compliments the drink before walking back to his group playing pool. Well, about 20 minutes go by, and more people from that same group come up to order another round before starting a new game, when the man from before comes up to me with his empty glass in hand. I walk up to him and I ask if he'd like anything else, else, and he shakes his head before asking me if the Amaretto Sour contained any nuts. Now, I genuinely thought he was joking with me for a second, so it's here that I let out a quick laugh, but he doubled down. He said to me, "No, I'm being serious. I need to know because I have a nut allergy and my throat is starting to itch." When he said this, I immediately stopped laughing. My coworker and I shared a terrified look before we had to tell him that yes, his drink did contain nuts because Amaretto is a liquor literally made with nuts. We obviously started to panic and asked if he had noticed the star next to it on the menu with the disclaimer in bold letters that said contains allergens or raw egg. He apparently didn't think that would apply to him in a cocktail bar, and he didn't think to ask about it ahead of time. Now, we were obviously freaked out, and we asked if he needed us to call the paramedics or something like that, but instead he just waved us off, told us that he was probably gonna be fine, and handed us his card to close his tab. He said that it was a huge bummer that Amaretto was made of nuts, because apparently that would have been his new favorite drink. We're honestly still baffled he didn't think to let us know that he had a nut allergy, since, you know, those can be usually dangerously severe. I mean, I have a friend that is so allergic to nuts that even just a small bit of a peanut could send her into anaphylaxis, so she'll do everything in her power to avoid unknowingly consuming it. But I guess in this case, his allergy just wasn't that severe. But even still, we really thought this guy was about to have a full-blown allergic reaction, considering he drank a full glass of Amaretto. But thankfully, things worked out because this really could have been a terrible situation. Oh my gosh, dude, this is so scary. Like, if you've ever met someone who has a peanut allergy or something close to that, then you know that this is one of those things where it only gets worse with time. Like, in most cases, the more you're exposed to it, the more severe it can get. So the fact that this guy had this drink and still was like, "Oh yeah, my throat's getting itchy. There's no nuts in this or anything, is there?" Like, that's crazy, dude. Don't you think you would have asked that? Like, come on, man. So overall, I think you guys got incredibly lucky because this very easily could have been an absolute nightmare to deal with. Today, I yelled at a customer because they literally went the wrong way in traffic. Because despite the fact that our retail store literally has signs dictating where the entrance and exit is, this idiot decided to go through the entrance to try and leave our facility, putting me in a situation where I had to raise my voice to make them stop. And now I'm worried this might get back to my manager because I'm scared I'm gonna get in trouble. And at this point, I just don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I'm feeling both a bit guilty and worried about what happened at work today. For reference, I work outside at a retail store collecting shopping carts to bring to the front. We have an above ground covered parking where you drive in and there are spots on the left and right going back a bit, and then you can turn left twice to get to more parking and be going towards the exit of the covered parking. Now, a common issue that we have is that people are pulling out of their spots and trying to come back towards the entrance, and they leave through there despite facing oncoming cars. Now, the entrance has a sign that says entrance and the exit says exit. There are arrows on the ground directing people in and towards the exit only, as well as two bold no exit signs hanging up, which are visible to those walking to the store or cars facing the wrong way. Well, today, some woman was driving towards the entrance to leave through an entire line of cars coming in while already being over halfway to the back and closer to the exit side. Well, when I saw this, I yelled at her and I forced her to turn around. And mind you, I have forced everyone I managed to catch to do the same thing, and in the process have also gotten angry at them as well. Now, I don't know why, but my anxiety is high with this one. In our area, we have some fires that are causing smoke to fill the air, the temperature is high, and the humidity is insane. We also had a sick call and we were busier than normal since we were closing for the day. I was extremely overwhelmed with all the work that needed to be done, and having her doing something that I would hope someone with a license would know not to do just honestly put me over the edge. And yes, she should have not gone the wrong way, but the state I was in wasn't her fault, and I feel bad about it. It felt like I yelled at her for ages, but it was only for a few seconds. I yelled asking what she thought she was doing, and that I wasn't going to let her through here, and how I was not in the mood to deal with this nonsense today. I don't think I said anything nasty to her, but my tone was loud and not friendly. Our company really caters to our customers, so I'm worried that if she complains, I'm done for. It would be my first complaint, but I just don't think that matters. The main reason I hate people trying to leave through the entrance is mainly due to all the signs telling people that you can't come back this way, but also because other customers walk into the covered parking through the entrance and you can't see vehicles until you're inside. Like, no one expects a car to be coming in that direction, so I worry that someone's going to get hit when I see someone driving that way, especially when they're going fast. Anyways, I feel less anxiety having written all that out, but I don't think I'll be able to relax for a couple of days because this honestly really stressed me out. Oh man, to the original poster, dude, I know exactly what you're talking about. This is so obnoxious, especially when they're too dumb to read the signs. Like, dude, I would be going crazy if I saw people trying to go through the wrong exit. And I'm sorry, what am I saying? It's not even an exit. They're trying to go back through the entrance, you know, going into traffic. Like, how stupid can you get? Like, at that point, I don't blame you for yelling. They're not paying attention and they could get someone hurt, especially if they're on foot. So like, in my my opinion, your anxiety and all the stress you're going through is completely justified. You have every reason to sit there and be like, wait a second, this is crazy. I do not like this. And you know what? That's one of those things where I hope my manager hears about this later on, because they're either going to be really happy for me and I'll be like, okay, I have a good manager, or they're going to be a Karen and actually try to yell at me for yelling at customers for going the wrong way. Like, I don't know about you, but that would be a perfect way to be like, oh, okay, my manager's awful and I don't want to work here anymore. And at the bare minimum, you can start looking for another job because clearly your manager sucks. So don't beat yourself up over this, dude. You did the right thing. Like, that really was the correct way to handle this, because the alternative of you saying nothing and then something awful happening, in my opinion, would make this entire situation way worse. My husband literally did not get me anything for my birthday, as he claimed he was under too much pressure, despite the fact that I literally gave him a list of what I was looking for. And now this has caused a massive blow up between the two of us, and at this point, I simply don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. To start things out, my husband and I have only been married since December, but we've been together for 3 years, and we've known each other for about 5. He's one of the nicest people I've ever known, and he's gone out of his way to help me out even before we were dating. He knows how important my birthday is to me, but he's always not cared about his. This year, because I know that it's difficult for him, I started reminding him months in advance to figure out a plan and a gift. It needs to be said that my net income is about 3 times as much as his, so I wasn't expecting like diamonds or anything like that, just like relatively cheaper stuff that I couldn't justify buying for myself. I also sent him links to things that I found cool but I couldn't justify buying, like some fake earrings or a Kill Bill t-shirt. Well, my birthday rolls around and he got nothing. He said he was trying very hard to find something that I will like and just couldn't figure anything out. And that in and of itself was one fight. The second was about how he went about getting the cake. I asked him to place the order in advance because I feel more comfortable planning ahead of time, but he insisted that he knew the bakery and he could easily get the cake an hour in advance. Well, the day before my birthday, I asked him once again if he could just please place the order, and it was here that he snapped at me. Well, at that moment, I gave up. I told him to cancel everything and I went out with strangers and celebrated with them. He called asking if he could join, but I just said no. Well, he apparently got an emergency therapy session, and the therapist told him that that was a jerk move. I know he didn't mean to hurt me, and he's been apologizing and offering to buy me whatever I want, but I'm not able to let my anger go. He knew this was important to me, and he went out of his way to ruin it for me, and I'm not able to get over it. So how do we move forward from this? What should I do? Okay, I gotta be completely honest. Anytime a post starts off by saying, oh, he's the nicest person I've ever known. He's always helped me out with so much. He's the best. Like, for me, that's a big red flag that, oh yeah, this guy's probably not all he's cracked up to be. Because then you listed off all the things that he should have been doing at the bare minimum. Like, think about it for a second. This guy could have easily just gone to that list and been like, oh, great, fantastic. Here's a list of things my wife wants. I'm just gonna get that. Like, there you go, problem solved. Maybe even get something that you think she would like that she's not expecting, just to try and like spice it up. Like, do you know how easy that would have been for me if I was in that guy's shoes? I would have been like, oh, thank you so much for giving me a list. I'm gonna get everything that you want, and then I'm gonna surprise you with something fun. Like, that would have been a dream, dude. Like, why are you like fumbling the ball right now? Also, the cake situation is so dumb. Like, dude, just order the cake ahead of time. Why be so obstinate about it and be like, oh no, I know this bakery. I can call them an hour in advance and they're gonna have it. Don't worry, I'm gonna wait till the last second. It's like, dude, is it really that hard to call and be like, okay, let me order this ahead of time? It would take 5 minutes to do it, and it's not that big of a deal. So in my opinion, this guy's not nearly all he's cracked up to be. I think it's just completely annoying the way he's acting. And in my opinion, this entire situation is on him and not the original poster. Today, I messed up by trying to break my buddy out of jail. And for a second, it worked until we finally got busted, resulting in me nearly losing my entire career in the military. Here's how it all went down. Okay, so this is a story of a jailbreak that actually worked for like 1 minute. It happened years ago, and I won't share certain specifics, and I will be using fake names, but seriously, this was the most epic screw-up I've ever been a part of. Now, at the time, I was in the military stationed stateside, and one night, a group of buddies and I discovered Jaeger bombs. Round after round, we kept them coming, and before we knew it, the night had completely flown by, and my friend Brian offered to drive my roommate and I back to our off-base apartment. Well, we didn't make it far. A car full of 3 21-year-olds leaving a bar at 2 o'clock in the morning near a military base? That immediately drew police attention. We got pulled over, and as soon as the officer reached Brian's window, it was clear that we were all drunk. In fact, all of us admitted it. Brian blew into the breathalyzer and failed instantly. He was then cuffed and placed in the back of the patrol car. Then the officer turned to my roommate and me, and he explained that if one of us blew under the limit, we could drive Brian Carr's home and save him the impound fees. Well, we both tried, and as you can imagine, both of us failed. Now here's where it gets really weird. The officer left us with Brian's car and the keys. Then he drove off with Brian to book him into the local jail. To this day, I have no idea why he left us like that. And about 20 minutes later, my roommate and I had what seemed like a brilliant idea. Now, as a quick note, this all happened years years ago, back when DUI penalties were just starting to become as serious as they are today. We were young, reckless, and unbelievably stupid. I don't condone drinking and driving in any way, and I'm grateful that nobody was hurt. So anyways, both my roommate and I were military police officers. We felt guilty for letting Brian drive us, and now he was in trouble. So with absolutely zero judgment, we decided to drive Brian's car back to our apartment ourselves. It wasn't far, but that doesn't excuse the stupidity. And then somewhere between leaving the bar and arriving home, we came up with the ultimate plan. We were going to break Brian out of jail. And here's how the master plan went down. We returned Brian's car to our apartment, we brushed our teeth, put some gum in our mouth, and shaved, and we got into our military police uniforms. We even put on our guard belts to make it look like we were on duty. I then called my precinct's dispatch, and I asked them not to contact the jail Brian was at. And for a bit of background and reference here, every night the command checked local jails for military members. And luckily, I knew the dispatcher on duty, and he owed me a big favor. So he agreed to this without asking any questions. We then called the jail directly, pretending to be my command. I asked if any military members were in custody, and they confirmed that Brian was there. I then asked if we could take him into custody, and they said yes. So we then switched cars, leaving Brian's car at the apartment, and take one of our own. We give ourselves one last pep talk, and then we head out. We pulled into the jail parking lot at around 4 o'clock in the morning, and it was completely empty. We buzzed at the entrance, explained that we were there to take custody of Brian, and we were told okay. Well, 25 of the longest minutes of my life later, a loud buzzer finally sounded. The heavy metal door slid open, and there stood 2 corrections officers and Brian in handcuffs. And the look on his face was priceless. Like his jaw dropped and he was pale as a ghost. I then told the officer that I'd put my own cuffs on him so they could take theirs back. I even gave him a pat down before swapping them out. And just like that, Brian was in my custody. We thanked the officers, walked him out, and headed across the lot toward our car with our hearts pounding. And that's when my roommate whispered, "Don't get in the car. Do not get in that car." Well, I turned around to see the arresting officer standing behind us. He looked us dead in the eye and asked, "Wait, aren't you two the passengers from the vehicle I pulled over tonight?" And yeah, in that moment we got busted. Our luck had finally run out. The lot had been empty when we arrived, but while we were waiting, the arresting officer had pulled in and was sitting in his patrol car doing paperwork. He watched us walk Brian out of jail like it was nothing. Well, as you can probably guess what happened next, we all went to jail. By 8 o'clock in the morning, our command came to get us. Back at base, I was told to go home, pack my things, and be ready because this wasn't going to end well. The next day, I returned and I didn't leave base for 45 days until we deployed again. Now, when it comes to the fallout, I was punished to the fullest extent of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. I disappointed a lot of people and I carried that shame. But at the same time, I was infamous. Word spread pretty fast. Everybody knew about the failed jailbreak, and for better or for worse, it made us celebrities. People said that we embodied loyalty, and you had to admire the audacity even if the execution was insane. Now, thankfully, this didn't end my career. I served out my enlistment honorably, and I've never screwed up like that ever again. Looking back now, it was crazy, it was reckless, and absolutely stupid. But it's also one of the wild stories that remind me of the bonds that we had as brothers in arms. We tried to break a friend out of jail, and for a brief, glorious moment, it kinda worked. Dude, this is a hilarious story, holy crap. First of all, you're great friends for trying this, but also, oh my gosh, what were you thinking, dude? Like, that could have gone so badly if it was today's day and age, and you can tell that this was something that happened a long time ago because, oh my gosh, I don't think anybody would have let that slide, like seriously. So good for you for the tenacity, but also I think you got off very lucky in this situation, because this could have been a lot worse if things were just a little bit different. My entitled psycho brother has convinced my entire family that I'm openly trying to steal his wife, as he claims that I'm flirting with her and that I'm trying to undermine his marriage. But the biggest problem here is that I'm an openly gay man, meaning that I have no desire to have his wife even in the slightest, putting me in a situation that honestly feels very toxic because right now I really just don't know what to do. Here's how it all went down. Okay, so my brother has successfully convinced my family that I am somehow in love with my sister-in-law and that I'm trying to manipulate her against him so that I can steal her away. Now, for reference, my brother and sister-in-law have been married for 4 years, and also I'm a gay man. This apparently all came about because a couple of months ago, her and my sister had a big blow up about my sister-in-law's pregnancy, and I defended my sister-in-law against my sister's big tirade. Following that night, I received a lot of scrutiny from family, specifically my brother for interfering in women's business. And in response, I said some not so nice things to him. My sister-in-law also reached out to me and and apologized to me for causing the situation, and I let her know that she had nothing to apologize for and that I'm here to help both her and my nephew. We ended up having a pretty in-depth conversation about how my sister has treated her in the past, and apparently, my sister moved in with her and my brother for a brief period to help with my sister-in-law's first pregnancy and was really overbearing and constantly ridiculing her choices, all for the sake of the baby. My sister-in-law unfortunately suffered from what sounded like an ectopic pregnancy and had to have an emergency surgery to have the fetus removed. And my sister and brother apparently think that's the same thing as getting rid of the baby, if you know what I mean, and she was blamed for the loss of the child. And from how she spoke, she also saw this as a failure on her part. Now, it really pissed me off, and I did my best to explain to her the medical reasonings of why what happened was necessary, and that it's not only not her fault, but also that my brother and sister are just kind of stupid. I said that she shouldn't feel bad for doing something necessary to save her life. Well, that was the last time that she spoke, and I just let her know that I'd be there if she needed anything. Well, I guess she either told my brother, or he found out from her messages about the conversation we had, and he somehow took this as me flirting with his wife. Now, I will give him the fact that I did call him stupid in the message, but seriously, come on. Thinking an emergency procedure for a life-threatening situation was your wife willfully getting rid of her pregnancy and then making her feel bad about it is honestly just so stupid. I'm sorry, but no. He told the rest of my family about how I'm envious and how I'm trying to take his wife, which they all believed, and now, if you can believe it, they're mad at me. This wouldn't be a big deal for me if my mom wasn't also included in that. My mom is the only one in my family I have a good relationship with, but apparently she believes my brother and has even called me to scold me about betraying my brother and being shameless along with my other family members. Now, this is all frustrating, but here's the absolute best part about this. The reason why I'm estranged from my family is because I'm gay, and it is the thing that messed our family up. I've very openly been seeing another man for about 3 years now. My brother has also been open about not wanting me around his family because of my unnatural lifestyle. But after all that, he just easily believes that I'm in love with a woman suddenly. Like, what's going on right now? Now, I guess the reason why I came to the internet with this is so that I can understand how this would even be believable. I understand my dad and my sister believing this easily. I mean, they hate me and probably just want a reason to feel justified in somehow rallying against me. But I simply can't really comprehend my mother believing it, but maybe I just gave her too much credit. I mean, at the end of the day, I am very much the outlier of my family on all fronts. I also wonder if maybe my sister-in-law took what I was saying as me trying to take an interest in her. Maybe I made her uncomfortable, but the most I did was just explain medical things to her so she wouldn't feel bad about her first pregnancy. I don't know, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. I've always been at peace with not having my family, especially because my family is full of nut jobs, but I think potentially having to accept my mom is also that way is really starting to make me second guess myself. I also don't like the idea that I made my sister-in-law uncomfortable. So honestly, I don't know what to do right now because this situation is incredibly weird. Okay, your entire family's crazy. I'm just gonna say that right off the bat. You mean to tell me that these people are gonna be super homophobic towards you and be like, oh wow, you're gay, you're out of the family. And then in that same breath be like, oh wow, you're trying to hit on his wife, how dare you? We're gonna shun you even more. And yes, I totally understand that people could be bisexual and that really could happen in some kind of like hypothetical universe, but in this situation, that's not happening. It sounds like the original poster definitely does not like women. This is not one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, I like men and women. So in this instance, it seems like the family just wants some kind of reason to hate you. Like they literally are trying to find something and they finally found it and now they're just latching onto it. And that in my opinion is crazy. Like that really is a crazy thing to do to you because it is definitely just not fair at all. Like these people will easily believe the worst thing that could possibly be happening right off the bat simply because you took some lady's side. And by the way, you're completely right. Your sister-in-law is not at fault for her losing the baby. Like she could have died. I mean, what is wrong with these people? So no, you're not at fault here, and honestly, the way your family's acting is super weird because it seems like they want to be offended by the way you live your life, but also find a reason to persecute you, which in my opinion is completely unfair. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I'm a new server at this restaurant that I'm working at, and honestly, people are really rude sometimes. And right now I'm trying to figure out how to navigate this because this is honestly getting very frustrating. Here's what's going on. Okay, let me preface this by saying that I love serving. I actually really like my job, and 99% of my customers are absolutely lovely and understanding people. I also happen to have really awesome coworkers. But my God, I can't believe there are people out there that behave the way they do sometimes. People really believe that because you're a server, they can treat you like garbage and talk to you however they want, and you can't really stand up for yourself without putting your job on the line. It's really annoying. I would say I'm a decent server. I mean, some of the customers take the time to thank me and compliment my service, and I always try my best to provide a good experience, even if I really just don't feel like it or want to. Regardless, people love making incredibly rude remarks. I've noticed a lot of people will just make snarky comments instead of communicating their needs to you, and even still expect you to wait on them hand and foot. No, you're not my only table, and I don't have time to play passive-aggressive games with you. I usually handle this by being super nice in response, and sometimes the person realizes they're being a jerk and they stop, but other times the rudeness continues. Other times I pretend like I don't understand what they just said, and I avoid checking on the table as much as possible. I'm usually able to avoid taking it personally because it's just a reflection of the individual's self-esteem and need for control, and not anything that I did, but honestly it can be really hard sometimes. I'm a pretty sensitive person, and I can be hurt a little bit by some of these remarks, but I'm really hoping to grow some thicker skin as I move forward. On a positive note, I'm serious when I say that most of my customers are wonderful. I don't think a lot of servers can relate, and I feel really privileged for that, because those good customers make up for the few Karens I get by a long shot. Dude, as someone who has worked in the restaurant business, I relate so much to this, which is why I wanted to share it. Like, this hits me to my core, dude. There are just some people who are so mean to you. Instead of being a decent human being, they see you as like some kind of servant, as if they own you in some kind of way. Like, there really are some people out there who are so insecure and weird that they need some kind of control in their life. And guess what? As the server, you just happen to be that person. You're the 1 ounce of control they have over their crappy life. Because chances are they have an awful job that they get told what to do all day, and this is the only chance they get to be somebody. And I gotta be honest, I hate people like that so much. Like, in my opinion, and I think I've said this on this channel before, but the way you treat people in customer service is a direct reflection of who you are as a person. Because if you treat them like crap and treat them like, oh yeah, you're my slave, work harder, then you are a terrible human being. I truly think you're not a good person, and like, you need to check yourself and figure your life out. Because people in customer service, especially servers, are literally just trying to do their job. And if you treat them like crap, then in my opinion, you're a crap human being. My entitled psycho in-laws sent my husband an invite to his sister's wedding, completely ignoring the fact that these people were crazy and had burned bridges with our family from the very beginning. And right now, I'm honestly so stressed out that I just don't know what to do. Here's how it's all going down. Okay, I want to start off by saying that from the moment I had kids, my in-laws excluded me. On my first Mother's Day with 2 children, everyone exchanged gifts except me. The last Christmas I spent there, the only gift I got was from my nephew. In fact, my mother-in-law even lied to child services, saying that I was crazy and I fed my kids like animals, all because I didn't conform to their rules. Now, a year before the blow up and everything kind of went down in this post, we had already said that my sister-in-law, who we will call Felicia for the sake of the story, was not allowed around our kids. And the reason why is that she was actively trying to insert herself as my daughter's mother. Well, even though we established this boundary, my in-laws still snuck her around them anyways, showing us that they literally just didn't care. But the final straw is when Felicia literally physically attacked me while I was holding my 18-month-old baby because I told my father-in-law not to force kisses on my kid's lips. My mother-in-law stood there and just let it happen. And then later afterwards, they told my husband they would always stand by Felicia, even if it meant abandoning him. And then about 3 weeks ago, my mother-in-law finally reached out to me to try and fix things. And guess what? I was met with no accountability and her pretending that she didn't actually witness what happened, even though my husband also witnessed it, but he couldn't get to me fast enough. They told everyone in the family that I attacked Felicia, even though I physically couldn't have done it. I was holding my son in one arm and my diaper bag in the other, and they all watched me walk out of the room with my arms full. We have been extremely low contact or even no contact since the attack, and now a year later, Felicia is getting married, with them basically saying that she's met a good guy. Now, my husband has specifically stated that he would never go to her wedding because she burned the bridge, but just take a guess as to what my mother-in-law does anyways. She sent us a wedding invite to Felicia's wedding, addressing it specifically to my husband. Not me, not our kids, only him. him. And mind you, this was weeks after him saying that he would never go to the wedding. So even after everything they've done, they seriously think that he would want to celebrate the sister who assaulted his wife and child. I mean, how delusional can you actually be to think that he'd go and pretend to be a happy family with them just for pictures and appearances? So truly, this whole situation is so messy that I'm just not sure what to do. Okay, this is some scary stuff because, oh my gosh, my first question immediately was to say, wait a second, why did you not call the police? But the original poster has an update because they basically said that their father-in-law is a retired cop, and at the time, the husband basically said it was safer to leave as a family just so they could basically protect the family and the kids. And that really sucks because, like, holy crap, I can't imagine having someone attack me while holding a baby, all because you're like, hey, don't kiss my kids on the lips. Like, in my opinion, I think it's time to go actually no contact because these people are literally enabling Felicia to be a terrible person while also trying to deny it and be like, oh no, you're the one that actually attacked her, not the other way around. So yeah, this whole situation is weird, and hopefully you're able to escape these people and literally go no contact once and for all, because they definitely do not sound like good people. Am I the jerk for not letting my friend stay in my second property for free simply because I don't trust him, as he literally got evicted from his last place for not paying rent? Because right now he's calling me a jerk and trying to turn this situation against me. And at this point, I really just don't know what to do. I want to start off by saying that I'm a 27-year-old male and I come from poverty. And I mean like bad poverty. Myself, my parents, and 2 sisters grew up in a studio apartment, barely surviving, and it was honestly horrible. I love my family, but I hated my living situation. Now, because I found it so hard at home, I threw myself into my studies. I was in every extracurricular, and I ended up doing really well in school because of how much time I spent there studying and doing extra credit. Thankfully, this got me a full ride to the college of my dreams, and my family was really proud of me. I did great at college and enjoyed having my own space in the dorms. I then left and I went straight into work. I saved a lot of money, made some good investments, and I was very frugal, which now means I'm financially stable, and I have a really sweet house with my girlfriend, as well as helping my parents and my sister out. Recently, we decided to branch out into owning and renting properties and bought a neat little apartment near where my friend, who we will call Paul, is also based. Now, Paul recently found himself homeless after falling short on rent a few too many times. He has been couch surfing, and it's only gotten worse since he lost his job for failing a drug test. He found out through another friend of ours that me and my girlfriend got this apartment and has been blowing up my phone nonstop about wondering if he could stay in it. I called him back last night and I said that I was happy to rent it to him, but that he couldn't live there rent-free, because as it is, it just wouldn't be sustainable for me. He then called me a jerk and said I made more than enough money for him to stay there just until he got back on his feet. Now, I feel bad because I know that this could help him out, but I also just don't trust him. His last apartment was a wreck, and even if I was to rent it to him, who's to say that he's actually going to pay for things? My girlfriend thinks that we should let him stay there for a bit until he at least has a job, but I don't trust him to hold this end of the bargain and only stay there short term, as he has a reputation of being given an inch and taking a mile. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because at this point, I really just don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, there is no way I would ever give that property up to that guy. This Paul guy really reads as the type of person who would squat pretty much regardless, and it sounds like he's desperate enough to probably do that as long as possible. He doesn't seem super reliable on his paychecks, and honestly, I just would not trust that for a second. Because in my opinion, I would much rather be a jerk in this situation than to hand over my property over to someone who literally will most likely just destroy it. My husband deleted all of his social media apps right before he was going under for surgery, and now I'm left wondering if I'm overreacting because right now I'm not sure what's going on. Here's how it all happened. Okay, so my husband was scheduled for a medical procedure at the hospital due to some reoccurring health issues. He's still young, but has been dealing with chronic kidney problems that needed more intensive treatment. A few days ago, his symptoms flared up badly, severe back pain and swelling. I convinced him he needed to go to the emergency room, so at 2 o'clock in the morning, we were admitted. The doctors decided he needed a procedure under general anesthesia to place a temporary stent. Before they took him back, he had to give me his phone and other belongings to hold during the surgery. While he was in the operating room, his phone kept getting notifications. When I went to check if any were from the doctors or important family updates, I realized he had deleted Instagram, Snapchat, and Facebook, all apps that were definitely there just yesterday when we were showing each other funny videos while waiting in the ER. Now, this seemed really strange to me because he's always been pretty active on social media, especially Instagram, where he posts gym updates and connects with old friends. I mean, we've never been secretive secretive about our phones or social media accounts. Now, I'm probably just stressed out and overthinking because I'm terrified about his health, but the timing just feels really weird. Why would somebody delete their social media right before going under anesthesia? I mean, we did have some issues in the past before we were married. He had been messaging an ex-girlfriend inappropriately, and I forgave him and we worked through it. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just exhausted and paranoid from sitting in this hospital all night worrying about him. We have 2 small kids at home, and there's so much going on right now. I love him so much, and I'm genuinely just really scared about what could happen during this procedure. So seriously, am I reading way too much into this? Or should I ask him about it once he's recovered? What should I do? Okay, this seems incredibly suspicious. First of all, yeah, this is super sketchy. You mean to tell me the guy who literally has always been on social media decided to delete his social media from his phone once he realized he was not going to have control over his phone and who's going to look at it, namely you. Like, really? That's what he did before going under anesthesia for surgery? Like, dude, what's going on right now? That seems really sketchy in my opinion, and I just can't understand why someone would do that unless they're trying to hide something. So no, I don't think you're overreacting at all. I think you absolutely should ask him about it when he's like awake from surgery and be like, wait a second, what's up with this? Why did you delete everything on your phone? What's going on? Not to mention the fact that he's already talked with his ex-girlfriend once, like who's to say he's not doing it again? So yeah, this whole situation seems a little bit sketchy, and I don't blame you for feeling a little bit paranoid. My coworker thinks it's my responsibility to buy coffee for the entire office, even though we're supplied it for free by the job itself. Because after I brought in some coffee literally like a few times, this one coworker is bothering me about it every single time I see him, and honestly, it's getting incredibly annoying. Here's what's going on. Okay, to start things out, I love coffee and I make and drink it every single day at work. My job actually supplies us with ground coffee that's definitely not gourmet, but it does get the job done. Now, 3 times in 6 months, I've brought in better ground coffee and I've shared it with my coworkers by brewing a whole pod. I also brought in a couple of creamers to use instead of the supplied half and half. One coworker in particular latched onto this and now asks me every time I brew a pod if it's our company's coffee or my own. And when I say it's the company, she scoffs, but still ends up drinking it in the end. At least once a week, she'll ask me if I brought my coffee, when the last time I brought some was like 2 months ago. Several times I've tried to nicely tell her that those were like one-off times, and she seems to understand, but then she'll ask me the next time she sees me. Today she asked me yet again, and then she said to me at the end, "Oh, you must not have gotten your raise since you don't bring coffee in anymore." And when she said this, to be completely honest, I saw red. I wanted to ask her why she was projecting her brokenness onto me since clearly she hasn't gotten any raises, if she really depends on me for coffee. Instead, I asked her why I would supply coffee for the office when we already have it for free. She then started stammering about a coffee fund that we could make, but honestly, I wasn't interested. If I had known that I'd be hounded about it until the rest of my days, I never would have brought any in, because this coworker is incredibly annoying. Yeah, having a coworker like this is so annoying because you do one good thing and then suddenly they're like, "Oh yeah, do this all the time. You clearly didn't get a raise. I mean, I don't see any coffee in the office." And it's like, dude, if you like that coffee so much, bring it in yourself. Why are you exclusively relying on me? Like, are you seriously that obnoxious? So yeah, this coworker sucked, and I honestly cannot stand people who act like that. Today, I towed my roommate's boyfriend's car after he kept parking in my reserved spot, forcing me to take actions that honestly I never thought I'd have to make because they quite literally refused to listen. Here's how it all went down. Okay, to start things out, I'm a 31-year-old female, and I share a 2-bedroom apartment with my roommate. Our building has a few parking spots that are reserved for tenants, which I pay an extra $180 a month for because I work late shifts and I just don't want to have to look for a place to park on the street at 1 o'clock in the morning. When she moved in, I made it very clear that my parking space is mine and that the lease contains a rule about towing unauthorized cars in paid-for tenant spots, and she told me that she understood. Well, a few weeks later, her boyfriend started borrowing my spot without permission. I left a note and I sent her a text message to inform her nicely the first time, and the second time I found him while I was coming back from the store, and I asked him nicely to not park in the spot because it's not his, and I pay for it, so I'd like to use it. He then laughed and said that it was just a few hours, and I ended up parking on the street and caused me to get like a $75 ticket. But the third time was the worst. When I came home at midnight, his car was already parked in my parking spot. I drove around for half an hour before finally parking on the street, and once again ended up with a $75 ticket. So I texted my roommate and I asked her to make things right. She then replied that she was sorry, but didn't offer to pay me back, with her assuring me that it wouldn't happen again. Well, last Thursday it did happen again. When I go there at 1 o'clock in the morning and I saw his car, I just sat there with that awful feeling in my stomach. I took a picture of the plate and the reserve sign with my apartment number, and I called the tow company that was listed in the lobby. Well, they came in under 20 minutes and they towed his car. So I parked mine and I went up to my room and just went to sleep. About an hour later, my friend barges into my room in a panic. She says her boyfriend had went downstairs and his car was gone. She then yelled at me saying that I should have called them first, asking to move the car, and that I should not have towed it. But I said I'd already called her many times. And you know what? She didn't want to help me. And instead, I would get multiple parking tickets because of this. She then told me that I was doing too much and that it's not that big of a deal. And now I'm being told that he has to pay $275 just to get his car back. The next day, she wanted me to cover the towing fee, and I told her I would be more than happy to split the difference if she covered my parking tickets first, as well as the next month's parking fee since I could not use the space. She says that I'm blackmailing her and that I went way too far with towing the car. Well, as you can probably imagine, right now the atmosphere in our place is super awkward and very tense. Maybe I could have tried calling one more time, but I paid for the spot and I wanted to use it. I've asked many times, and she never even cared to help me out. So seriously, did I overreact by towing her car? Because right now I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong. No, in my opinion, I think you did the right thing. You gave these people 3 chances, and one of the times the guy laughs at you and says, "Oh, it's just gonna be for a few hours." And it's like, okay, if I'm gonna pay like what, $180 a month, then you better believe I'm gonna be weird about people parking in my spot. Seriously, if I'm paying that much money and someone's still gonna disrespect me, then congratulations, your car's getting towed and there's nothing you can do about it. So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all, and I think what you did is completely understandable. My boyfriend has secretly invited his parents to move into our house without telling me first, as they're literally moving to our house indefinitely after they sold their house because of their financial problems. And even though I've confronted my boyfriend about this and I'm trying to figure out why he did this, anytime I've talked to him about it, he said that I'm being ungrateful and accusing me of hating his family. But right now, I feel like I've been betrayed to the highest degree, and I seriously just don't know what to do anymore. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I've been with my boyfriend for 4 years, living together for almost 2. We bought a house together last year, and we had a lot of talks beforehand about boundaries, financial planning, and how important it was for both of us to feel like this was our space. Well, last week, my boyfriend casually mentions that his parents might stay with us for a while, as he put it. Now, I assumed he meant like a week or 2, maybe even like a month, which in my opinion is completely fine. They live out of state, and I know they've been struggling financially, so I didn't think much of it. Well, yesterday, I found out from my mother-in-law and not even my boyfriend that the plan isn't just a visit, because my boyfriend apparently told them that they could move in with us indefinitely, as in they've already sold their place and they're arriving next weekend with a moving truck. And when I found this out, I was stunned. I confronted my boyfriend immediately, and he acted like it wasn't a big deal. He said to me, "They're my parents, of course they have a place here." When I told him a permanent arrangement was never discussed and that I didn't consent to it, he got defensive. He then said I was being cold and ungrateful, and then he accused me of hating his family. Now, for context, I don't hate his parents. His parents are fine in small doses, but they're very traditional and openly critical of me not being wife material, meaning that we're not married and I have no plans to quit my career. His mom has made comments about how she would love to help raise the kids, even though we don't want children right now, and his father is the kind of guy who thinks women belong in the kitchen. So the idea of them living with us full time is challenging. And right now, I feel completely betrayed. My boyfriend made a massive life-altering decision without my input, one that directly impacts our home, and he just keeps brushing it off like I'm the one overreacting. I don't even know how to come back from this because right now I seriously am not sure what to do. Okay, dude, this is seriously some unbelievable garbage. Like, what is going on right now? Your boyfriend basically like lied to you and said, "Oh yeah, they might stay with us for a while," but he never was like, "Oh, by the way, that for a while part is gonna be forever. They're gonna live with us, it's gonna be no problem, and if you don't like it, I'm gonna call you cold and ungrateful, sorry." Like, that is so stupid, and it's so infuriating as well. Can you imagine buying a house with your significant other and then being like, "Oh, by the way, other people are moving in, let's do this." And it's like, wait a second, I own this house too, what are you doing? We need to talk about this. You can't just spring that on me and be like, "Oh, how can you not be more grateful? You hate my family, that's what it is." And it's like, no, dude, this is just something you need to talk to me about. You can't just tell me like a week before they're moving in after they sold their house that, yeah, they're gonna live with us full time. Now, I'm not saying what the original poster should or shouldn't do, but if this was me, this would 100% be a deal breaker. Like, this is a massive betrayal of trust. I think the original poster has it correct. And I just can't imagine pulling something like this and then being like, "Oh yeah, this is fine." Like, dude, no, this is not fine. This is messed up. Because this is a massive red flag that I simply would not be able to ignore. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled Karen freaks out on a deli worker, demanding that they make her sandwich right then and there. But then suddenly she walks away without telling them exactly what she wants, leaving me and this worker completely baffled. Here's how it all went down. Okay, so I was waiting in line at the sub counter in the deli section of my local grocery store. There were two people working the counter. One of them was serving the man in line ahead of me, and another one was off to the side slicing deli meats. There was no one else in line, so I assume the latter is working on a mobile order. A third worker eventually finishes with something and gestures for me to step forward for my turn. Now, before I do, this woman suddenly cuts in front of me and starts loudly complaining to the worker that it's ridiculous her sub hasn't been made yet and she needs it right now. The worker is visibly confused and honestly same. I had not even seen that woman anywhere in the deli section when I arrived, so I wasn't sure what entitled her to an already completed sandwich. The guy who was previously slicing deli meats comes to the counter and tells her that he was still in the process of making her sub. She again says something about the ridiculous wait time, and he assures her that it will be completed shortly. She then tells him the general sub type that she wanted, and then she walks off. No indication of bread choice or preferred toppings. Nothing but a second disappearing act in the maybe 30 seconds it took the man to turn around to replace his gloves. He practically shouts at her, "I can't finish your sandwich unless you tell me what you want on it." Well, she doesn't return, and she's not even in the deli section anymore. So this guy's just left standing there with a stack of meat and cheese that he's not exactly sure what to do with. In the time it took for the man ahead of me in line to have 3 sandwiches made, and for me to finally get my own sandwich made, this woman has still not returned. The guy who has been unsuccessfully attempting to build her sandwich for who knows how long at this point lets out a sigh and says, well, how does she expect her sandwich to be magically ready for her when she's not even here? I don't get paid to be a mind reader. I then just can't help but let out a chuckle, and I wish him the best when she inevitably comes back absolutely livid that her sandwich is still not ready, because this lady absolutely looks like one of those Karens who would probably complain to the manager. Yeah, if I was the worker in this situation, I would not have made that sandwich, and I would have happily told that Karen why the second she comes back. Like, what's going on right now? This is unfair for me and the people in line. Like, what are you doing? I can't read your mind, and I know for a fact I will never get this right, and you will always be upset. So yeah, that was super messed up, and I would be very pissed off if I was working there. My entitled neighbors are literally the worst thing this neighborhood has ever seen, but after dealing with them for so long, I decided that it was now time to get some revenge. Here's what I did. So I have a crappy neighbor with a crappy girlfriend who moved into our small and tight-knit neighborhood about 5 years ago. The girlfriend, who is about 20 years younger, is okay, but he is an absolute nightmare. The first few months they were there, their very dangerous dogs kept getting out and chasing neighbors into their homes. They've dug under my fence and attacked 2 of my dogs, and thankfully they're both okay. And you can't talk to him because he's a man who cannot take accountability whatsoever. For example, a realtor reported him for leaving his boat parked at his house, and he took it out on all the other neighbors and started reporting everyone for the dumbest stuff. Well, he's now started breeding dachshunds. I have a dachshund as well, and I know that they can be stubborn to say the least, but as a responsible owner, I've trained him not to bark outside. Inside is totally fine because I get it. Stuff outside moves, but he's very well behaved outside. And if he's not, we have a backup collar that can fix that. Now, he's decided to let his dachshund stay outside all day while he's at work or when they go out to dinner or something like that. And the entire time they're gone, these dogs are barking like crazy. In fact, I have a 3-hour-long recording of them barking continuously. And also, animal control will do nothing about this because according to them, they have shade and water, which is honestly so annoying. Okay, so with that in mind, they have a pool very close to my fence, and I've heard them complaining about our very old crepe myrtle that has been there before their pool was even there. So needless to say, I'm not going to remove it. It's a shaded spot for my dogs, my chickens, and my hanging plants, not to mention a safe spot for my visiting birds. Well, we tried asking him to not keep the dogs outside all day to bark, but he told us to basically go screw ourselves. So now we have an additional crepe myrtle set up by the fence with a line of clumping bamboo right in the middle. And on a branch on the crepe myrtle they hate so much is a Bluetooth speaker that just plays a lovely ringing sound for them. And they haven't been able to use their pool in 3 weeks because the ringing is so bad. Now here's where it gets really good. They can't call the cops or the city because their fence didn't have a permit when they put it up, and they know that I'll report it immediately if they try. Oh man, I can't stand having a bad neighbor like this because they really are the worst thing in your life. They're always causing problems, they're always making life miserable, and it's like, man, you literally just cannot find any relief. If there's ever a problem in the neighborhood, it's probably from them. So I love this petty revenge. Not just because of the clumping bamboo, which by the way is gonna be a nightmare, but also the fact that you are so petty that you brought a Bluetooth speaker outside just to make a ringing noise that they literally cannot stand. Like, that really is funny to me, and from the sounds of it, these people definitely deserve it. Today, I found out that I was uninvited to my boyfriend's sister's wedding literally 2 weeks before it's happening. And now I'm honestly at an impasse because I seriously just don't know how to fix this situation. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I was told 2 weeks ago that I wasn't invited to my boyfriend's sister's wedding. I was originally invited, and I know this because while they were planning the wedding, she would speak to me about what she had been working on and planning. I was present for a conversation about the seating chart for the reception, where I was told which table I was at and who I would be sitting with, since my boyfriend is in the wedding party and he will be at the head table. Originally, I told I was uninvited because they weren't letting a family member bring their new girlfriend, so it wouldn't be fair to let me come along as well. Me and my boyfriend have been together for 2 years, we live together, we talk about getting married, and we are very much in a not new, serious, committed relationship. And also, the groom's sister is bringing her boyfriend of less than a year as well. The next reason she gave me was that I had not tried to form a relationship with her, so I shouldn't have expected to be invited. But for the past year and a half, every time she talked about wedding stuff, I offered to help out and she just turned me down every single time. I've also made plans with her and she's just bailed every single time. I've invited her to parties that we have at our home and she's only shown up to like one of them. I have also never heard from her unless I've reached out first. We have never had any issues, and when we are together at events, we get along great. I mean, I did stop trying to make plans after a year of being blown off, but I truly just don't understand what else I could have done to have a relationship with her, besides in the past when we would talk at family events. Me and my boyfriend are in the middle of a move right now that I am largely doing alone so he can attend wedding stuff this week. I know it's selfish to be upset because she has every right to choose who is at her wedding, but the way she went about uninviting me last minute with reasons that don't make any sense is literally just not sitting well with me. I'm not a random woman in her brother's life, and I have made sacrifices in order for her to have the very best day possible, especially moving mostly alone so her brother can spend the week with family. I simply don't want to try to build a relationship with her after this. I did reach out to her to apologize for making her feel like I didn't want to build a relationship with her, and I asked if she would want to go for coffee in a couple of weeks just to talk. Now, she agreed to go, but I don't know if I actually want to have this conversation with her, given how I was treated in this situation. I love my boyfriend with my whole heart, but I also can't see a path forward for us if I can't work this out with his sister. What should I do? Okay, honestly, this is really crappy for several reasons. First of all, the way she's treating you is so inappropriate. Like you said it yourself, you're not some random woman. You literally live with her brother, and it's like, dude, we're in a serious relationship. So the fact that suddenly she's gonna be like, oh, you can't go, sorry, claiming that you haven't made a relationship with her, like that is crazy in my opinion. And it simply just doesn't stand on its own 2 feet. Like this makes no sense. She's trying to claim that you never reached out, but honestly, from the sounds of it, it seems like it's the other way around. She's the one who's never tried to reach out to you and almost like blowing you off every single time. Now, the other thing that really pisses me off about this situation is the way your boyfriend's reacting. Why is he not speaking up? Like seriously, what's going on here? It seems like, to me at least, like he's not doing anything to defend your name or say anything about this. And I totally understand the wedding is right at your doorstep and you don't want to like rock the boat, but it's like, wait a second, you haven't done anything wrong, and the very person that should be defending you is also not saying anything and remaining pretty quiet. And if you ask me, that is one big red flag that I would never be able to avoid, because this whole situation, in my opinion, seems a little bit suspicious, and I would definitely be on edge if I was in your shoes. An entitled party of 25 people all demand to be sat together at our restaurant, causing more chaos and problems than I can possibly describe, as they literally, even at the end of the night, refused to tip any of our waiters, saying that they hated our service despite the fact that all of them were so difficult to work with. Here's what happened. So when I was a teenager, I bussed tables at a semi-nice steak place in our town. It was as nice as a Midwestern restaurant could get in our small town, so oftentimes the customers thought that they were hot stuff for eating at this place. That led to customers being entitled in the first place, and a general air of people saying, oh, well, don't you know who I am? And it's like, yes, I do. It's a small town. Now, a group called 30 minutes before we opened and asked if we could seat 25 people as soon as we opened. Well, the manager said no. However, we could seat 12 people, and they would just have to sit at 2 different tables. The caller then agreed, and we prepared the tables accordingly. Well, the group of 12 arrives and immediately starts complaining about the separate tables. But these are round and they're in the middle of the dining room, so they cannot be pushed together at all. well. And sure, while this is annoying, unfortunately, this is not the end of it. Over the course of the next 15 minutes, 13 more people from the group start to arrive, and they demand to be seated with the main group. They came as singles and couples and have been clearly planning this for a while. Well, my manager somehow found seats for them in the same dining room as the previously sat group, but this is simply not good enough for them. They start complaining about the fact that they are sitting at different tables, that they do not have the same server, that they are too far apart, and that the food is not coming out simultaneously to all 25 people. Now, the servers were having a hard time even getting these people food. The customers were yelling over each other while the server tried to take orders, and they kept switching their seats. This meant that the servers could not keep accurate tabs on who was sitting where in order to make sure the right people got the right food. When it finally came time to pay, different people were picking up other checks who did not sit with them originally, and our servers couldn't split checks between different parties with different servers, and apparently this was more than enough to warrant them not tipping the servers at all. Because so many people were in smaller groups, like under 6 people in total, there was no added gratuity, so a few servers went through all that pain just to walk away with no tip. The main group also complained to our manager the whole time. Apparently they had reserved our banquet room for the following day, and they were appalled by the treatment that they were getting. It's also important to note that we had 2 banquet rooms for large parties, but it required a reservation deposit. One room was for huge parties of people, while the others was for parties between 15 to 30 people. Now, looking back on this 5 years later, these people definitely wanted to get out of the banquet room fee and expected special treatment since they had made reservations for the bigger room at a different date, which honestly made the entire situation unnecessary and incredibly annoying. Oh man, this is so frustrating. If I was a server in this situation, I would be losing my mind. I would be drafting up a resignation letter like right then and there, and I'd be like, no, I'm not doing this. There's no way. Screw that. I am not gonna sit here and be treated like that just for these people not to tip me after all the crap they put me through. Like, dude, I'm sorry, but that's just not gonna happen. That's not something I'm gonna ever deal with, because their behavior is super toxic and they literally were just trying to be tightwads. Not to mention not even tip the servers, which really blows my mind. My boyfriend doesn't want to marry me, all because of the money that he has that I literally have never known about. Because after I found out that he's nearly a millionaire, everything started to be explained as to why he never wants to get married. And at this point, I really just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, I want to preface this by saying that we've been dating for 2 years and we've been living together for about half a year. And our relationship for the most part is great. We're very affectionate, we have the same lifestyle, we have similar goals and hobbies, and we spend a lot of time together. We are very compatible in all things that matter. In fact, my cats love him and I do too. He's smart, funny, and charismatic. He's very sweet and considerate, even if he's probably avoidant. He's quite reserved, analytical, and shuts down when big emotions are involved. He doesn't mean any harm though, and always makes sure that I've got everything I need. Now, when we first started dating, I asked him out before I knew anything about his finances except his job, and I kept deep questions to a minimum afterwards because it was really new in our relationship. I would ask him stuff like, well, does he have a job? Is he financially responsible? What does he think about traditional marriage? Stuff like that. We quickly learned we're both frugal penny pinchers, and that suits us fine. He even liked that I offered to split the meal and have a very non-traditional gender role mindset. Now, I figured he was in a similar low bracket to me since his kind of pay isn't super high. We then agreed that traditional weddings and marriages aren't really our thing, but he seemed kind of off-put by the question, so I didn't dig any further. Well, a few months in, I found out he's got great credit, he's good at stocks, and he was aiming to try and buy a house. I thought it was very admirable, and it inspired me to grind my savings even harder so that I could catch up, since he seemed to have enough for a down payment saved up. In general, I would always pay him back, and I never asked for money or pried into his finances. I just don't move like that, and I know that men can see that as offensive, and I genuinely like him, so I didn't bother. A year in, we discussed more about how he wants kids and marriage again, with me bringing up that I think prenups are a good idea, and that I don't find it offensive if that's something that he would want to consider as well. Well, that's when I learned that when he agreed about not liking traditional weddings and marriage, he meant that he actually didn't like them, period, meaning that he will not get married at all. He insisted that prenups are too expensive, that marriage is just a piece of paper that we don't need, and that it can put us financially at risk, stating that it can screw up our taxes. He said that I'm definitely wife material and that he loves me, but also said that we don't need a piece of paper to show that. Now, I didn't know the details, so I figured that's fair, and that I wouldn't want to be a financial strain on us, so I just dropped it. Now, I don't make a lot of money, but I like to spoil him just a little bit, and we're talking dates and treats because he is so sweet to me. Eventually, he got a house, and we originally weren't going to move in, but fate had other plans, and I even paid out of pocket to move in with him another half a year in. The pay at my new job sucked, but he says I don't need to pay rent, and he wants me to save my money just like him. So I think to myself, okay, cool. I'll just split the shared finances and I take on some of the bills. We split housework accordingly and overall it is very fair. He then explained how much he pays into the mortgage and that he got a good loan and all this other stuff, and I thought to myself, okay, right on. He then described it as a financial strain and I was seriously just glad to help out. And honestly, life together has been really awesome. Now, I brought up marriage alternatives one day because I would still like some kind of legal protections and some abilities if he actually wants us to have kids someday. Like, I really do want to be committed to this long-term relationship. But this time when I brought it up, he got very defensive and joked, asking if I was plotting to take him out and if I was trying to trick him into bringing it up again. But I was like, wait, why would I do that? I'm just saying that there's alternatives and I'm trying to protect us legally and financially, since I found out how marriage would actually increase our finances when I finally ran an estimate of the numbers. Well, when I said this, he had me drop it again by saying that he'll think about alternative paperwork to mimic marriage protections but have less power overall. Well, anyways, it's our 2-year anniversary in a couple of days, and I just found out through him telling me about his stocks that he's actually almost a millionaire, and he won't let anyone near his money over his dead body. So with that in mind, I guess I'm not getting married because I could be a gold digger or something like that, where it could be perceived as someone who's just going after his money. You know, the very money I didn't even know existed for like 2 years. Maybe it was dumb of me not to have asked more questions, but it's never been about the money for me of whether he has it or not. So it sort of just stings that he's making it all about the money. So it really seems like not being able to afford a prenup is obviously a lie. I still love him, of course, but I don't know how I should navigate my feelings about this, because right now I just don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, some people in the comments are saying this, but I feel the exact same way. This guy is not treating you like a partner at all. He's literally just walking all over you and just being like, okay, yeah, you could stay, I guess. Like, this guy's not committed to you. He doesn't really care about you from the sounds of it. And yet you're trying to be like, oh yeah, he's great. He loves me so much. And that just doesn't come across at all in this post. Like, maybe there's more details we don't know, but I just do not see the love at all. So yeah, this guy is like a big walking red flag. And I think the only reason he doesn't want to get married is because he literally doesn't want you to have any of his money. And it's like, sure, good on you, but like, there are ways to make this work if you really wanted to. But overall, this guy does seem kind of weird, and I know if I was in your shoes, I would definitely be on guard. An entitled Karen steals my seat on an airplane and then pretends to be asleep so that she can try and get away with it, forcing me to take drastic actions just to get her attention and force her to move. Here's what happened. Okay, to take you back about 10 years, I was on a flight to attend an annual convention happening on the other side of the country with 2 of my senior colleagues. It was the night before the first day of the event, so the entire flight practically consisted of people in the same industry. My colleagues were busy greeting or acknowledging people as we were walking along the airplane aisles to get to our seats, and at the time I was a rookie. At any rate, a woman in her early 30s was sitting in my seat. She was wearing oversized sunglasses along with a pair of studio headphones over her head. Moreover, she rested her hands neatly on her lap, and she had her head tilted back on the headrest as if to suggest that she was asleep and not to be disturbed. And it's like, give me a break. Half the plane hadn't even finished boarding by this point. Well, she ignored several of my initial verbal attempts at getting her attention, and she ignored a half-dozen gentle taps on her shoulder. When she finally woke up, I tried explaining to her that she was in my seat, but her response was to point at her headphones, then shrugging with both her hands upturned to gesture that she couldn't hear what I was saying. I then said, well, you can try taking them off, but still, I got nothing. She just continued to play dumb with no intention of taking her headphones off. And by this point, I think you can understand that I was starting to impede aisle traffic. Now, refusing to give up, I then showed her my boarding pass, pointing directly at the printed seat number. She then mouthed the word "oh," as if she just now suddenly understood what I'd been saying all along. She then tucked her knees half an inch into the seat and motioned me to try and pass by her like that. Now, I had briefly considered whether to give her my front or my back, but I chose to insist instead. When she then tucked her knees in again, at another futile attempt at getting her to move to her own seat, I just about had it at this point. I decided right then to raise my voice, and I said as loud as I could, "I'm not the one getting up, you are." To which she instantly recoiled and moved to the window seat without another word. The guy who was waiting behind me in the aisle gave me a thumbs up as he passed by. And truly, I thought that was that, but she was apparently still salty and wanted satisfaction. After the plane had taken off, she tapped on my shoulder and said that she'd be open to switching seats with me if I wanted to, but I just politely declined, albeit with an almost amused look on my face. Later on, I was casually conversing with my colleagues seated across from me in their aisle seats. She then tapped on my shoulders again and said that her offer extended to my friends. I then gave a light chuckle and I said sure, and I knew what she was getting at along with her condescension, that she was someone in the industry. But it's like too late. I already texted my colleagues after that little incident of ours and they both know what actually happened. She later circled back on this, wanting to know if I'd asked my colleagues about their seat yet, to which I replied in the negative. She then asked me, well, if you could please just ask them, to which I'd always just reply with a positive, okay, sure, in a lighthearted manner. And here's the thing, this exact exchange occurred between us not once, not twice, but 3 times in the course of a 6-hour flight. Now, to this day, I've never come across her professionally, so I'm honestly not sure exactly what she was trying to achieve there. Okay, this has got to be a first one I've ever read in my life because this is just insane in my opinion. Did she really think she could try and be like, oh yeah, if I pretend to be asleep, maybe then I'll be left alone. Maybe I can keep this seat and no one will know the wiser. And it's like, dude, you're an idiot. That's not going to work at all and it's just going to make you look really stupid. And the fact that this lady is in your industry and wants to act like that, like, dude, just be agreeable. Sit where you're supposed to sit and don't be like a child and be like, oh, I don't know any better. I'm just sleeping here in my seat. Sorry. Like, I can imagine literally people just got on the plane and then suddenly she's sitting down and being like, okay, time to take a nap. It's like, dude, not only are you a Karen, but you're also pretending to be asleep. Like, what's happening right now? So good for you for standing your ground and not letting this lady make you move, because the way she was acting was incredibly entitled. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled coworkers demand that I work the same hours as them, as they are really pissed off that I leave the office at 4, despite the fact that I live the furthest away. So I decide to get some sneaky, petty revenge in a way that is truly going to annoy them for quite a while. And I'm honestly so glad that I got this on them because they absolutely deserved it. Here's what happened. Okay, so I worked in a large office with multiple departments, and each department could choose whether they wanted to have flexi time or not. Most chose to have this option, but the core hours were from like 10 o'clock in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so everybody needed to be in the office during this time, and the phone lines were open from 9 in the morning until 5 o'clock at night. So as long as the phones were covered the hour before and the hour after the core time, no one really minded how people managed their time. Now, as someone who lived the furthest away, I chose, after making sure it was fine, to come in at 8 o'clock in the morning every day and then leave at 4 o'clock so that I could avoid the worst of rush hour traffic. I had been working these hours for the better part of 4 years, and no one had any problem with it. Well, that is until I changed departments. Despite there always being cover until 6 o'clock p.m. on most days, my coworkers had a problem with me being the only one to leave at 4. Like, they complained constantly to the department manager. He gave them the option of leaving early if they wanted to, setting up a rotation of people leaving early, basically any workable solution that was feasibly possible. But no, nothing was acceptable for them. Literally none of my coworkers wanted me to leave early unless there was some kind of emergency or something like that. So if they chose to stay until 5, then I should also fit in with the team and do the exact same. Well, being completely exhausted, my manager spoke to me and said that he'd tried everything, but they just wouldn't back down. I then asked if I could move to another department that didn't mind me leaving at 4 o'clock, but he gave me a piece of information which made me smile, and I decided to stay. I then asked if he wouldn't mind batting them off of me for the next couple of weeks because I definitely had a plan. Well, a team meeting was held after a couple of weeks to discuss working hours, and I sat back and allowed my coworkers to get themselves all worked up. I decided to throw a few comments here and there to rile them up some more, and when I thought it was the right moment, I held my hands up and I conceded defeat. I asked the team if they would prefer I work 9 to 5, and of course they all agreed. Giving a quick look to my manager, I repeated that we should all work the same hours, considering their argument was that I was the only one leaving early, and there was unanimous agreement. So I suggested that we should all, as a team, work from 9 to 5. I was then met with enthusiastic nodding, and it was all going to be starting from tomorrow. Well, we were then met with silence. My manager spoke up saying that was a wonderful idea and a brilliant solution. He would put it in place immediately so that we could all come off of flexible time, and as a department, all work the same hours, which is what the team wanted to do in the first place. Well, now's a good time to mention that there was a worldwide sporting event taking place at the time. Living in the United Kingdom but not being British, I didn't feel the need to follow the United Kingdom teams. The event was being held abroad, so due to time differences, some of the games were being played in the morning on United Kingdom time, meaning that my coworkers could watch the games and still be at work by about 10 o'clock in the morning. I then piped up to remind my team that this meant I would no longer be the one covering the phones from 9 to 10. And my God, what a relief, because the phones did get busy first thing in the morning. One colleague tried to speak up, but my manager reminded them that this is what they've been asking for all along, that the whole team worked the same hours. And oh yeah, this was also the time to mention that seeing as I couldn't leave early anymore, there was no need to work through my lunch break, which is something I offered to placate them, And in fact, I didn't even used to have a lunch break that often back then anyways. Flexible hours meant that people had the choice to take 2 hours for lunch, and I'd offer to cover the phones when the games were on. So needless to say, I would stop doing that as well. Otherwise, I would be worn out just working flat until about 5 o'clock. That meant that the quarter and semifinals they had planned to watch, which just so happened to be played during the lunchtime, as well as our office showing it on a large screen in the main conference room, would only have a restricted viewing time of 1 hour. I announced that I could see I was being selfish for being the only one to leave early, and I was pleased to fit in with everyone else by working from 9 to 5. That also meant that I wouldn't be signing off the payments from the previous day, which is something I would do first thing in the morning when it was nice and quiet. Now, albeit I chose not to remind them of that, but I did like seeing the look on their faces when they realized they had extra work to do the following morning, which is work that they should have been doing in the first instance, and again, it's something I volunteered to do just to placate them. Now, you might be wondering, what is this information that my manager gave me in our meeting 2 weeks prior? Well, in a cost-cutting exercise, my office was relocating to another one, which happened to be a lot closer to where I lived. So ultimately, the removal of this flexible time worked in my favor, as it meant that I could then walk to and from work. So honestly, it was really difficult not to pull a smug face when the relocation was announced, because these people had no idea what was coming. Dude, as someone who's had coworkers like this, I honestly love everything about this. These people literally were like, I can't believe you're not working as long as we are. We're gonna ruin that for you and make you work the same hours as us. What are you gonna do about that? And it's like, dude, what are you talking about? You're not bothering anybody in this situation. You're coming in early, but you're also leaving early. These people are trying to act like you're screwing the system up somehow by leaving at 4 o'clock. But it's like, dude, you work so far away. Why would they act like you're some kind of like special privileged person just because you leave at 4? You're probably on the road for like an hour just to get home. Like, what's going on right now? So honestly, with all things considered, I think your coworkers deserve to have this little piece of happiness ruined for them, because they literally did the same thing to you. And that, in my opinion, is completely unfair. My boyfriend is acting incredibly weird when it comes to our dogs, as he's acting incredibly controlling about what they can and cannot do. But despite the fact that my dog is incredibly well trained, whereas his is completely out of control, I feel it's very unfair for my dog to be punished for his dog's behavior. And at this point, I'm not sure if we should move in together, because this situation is honestly very frustrating. Here's what's going on. So I really feel super frustrated with this situation, and I could use some outside perspective. Ever since I adopted my dog by the name of Mocha, my boyfriend has started putting strict boundaries on how we interact with our dogs. Mocha is potty trained, sleeps with me at my place, and is allowed pretty much everywhere. But Roxy, my boyfriend's dog, isn't fully trained, and sometimes pees on her bed, Mocha's bed, and around the house. When we go to my boyfriend's house, neither dog is allowed upstairs because of the carpet, you know, the one that Roxy might pee on, and they can't go on the couch downstairs for the same reason. That means that if I want to snuggle with Mocha, I have to do it on his bed, and I hate it. I feel so restricted and sad. I've tried asking for small compromises, like letting Mocha on the couch when I'm there or upstairs in the guest bedroom, you know, when we're having a movie night once a week, but literally nothing works. And this is not just at home. There is this dog-friendly bar that I love, but because Roxy snaps at other dogs all the time, we simply can't go. And if I try to go alone with Mocha, my boyfriend feels like we're leaving Roxy behind and says it's not fair. Mocha hasn't socialized in ages, and it makes me so upset that I can't spend quality time with him or let him enjoy the things he loves because of rules that aren't even about him. I'm really conflicted because we are close to moving in together, and if this is how it's gonna be, I honestly just don't know if I could be happy. I understand my boyfriend wants to even things out, but I don't feel like it's fair for Mocha. My boyfriend thinks hanging out with the dogs downstairs during the day is enough, but honestly it isn't. I feel like I'm missing out on so much with Mocha, and it makes me feel powerless and frustrated. Has anyone ever been in a situation that's similar to this? How do you make living together work when one dog's behavior restricts everything for the other dog, and you feel like your relationship with your own pet is being limited? What should I do? Okay, I've got to be completely honest with you. If I was about to move in with someone and my dog wasn't allowed to be a dog around the house, I would seriously be reconsidering that entire situation. Because you said it best, this is not your fault. This has everything to do with Roxy and nothing to do with you. And that really is so stupid, because let's think about it for a second. Why can't you bring your dog with you to that bar? It doesn't make any sense. And his reasoning of saying, oh, you're leaving Roxy out. It's like, dude, it's a dog. This is a dog that you chose not to train correctly. It doesn't have feelings on the situation. It's not going to have anything to say about it. It's just a dog. So the real reason he doesn't want you to bring Mocha with you is because he knows for a fact that he would never be able to do the same thing with Roxy. You know, the dog he refuses to train. And in my opinion, that's a big red flag. Like, that really is not your fault. So in my opinion, and I really feel this way, if you did end up moving in with this guy, the way he's acting with the dogs now is like a peek into the window of how he he's gonna act pretty much the entire time you're living together. And that, in my opinion, sounds incredibly obnoxious, and I would never want to put up with that. Am I the jerk for canceling a visit with my mom after she literally put being a landlord over being a mom first? Because after my dog nearly died, she decided that she was going to take money out of my security deposit, despite the fact that I met all of her requirements while moving out. Because right now I'm still very pissed off and I just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so about 2 years ago, I moved to a new city and began renting an apartment from my mom and her husband. They own a couple of units in a semi-popular city. They charged me market rent or just slightly above market rent, which was not cheap. We signed a lease and all that stuff. After a year, it went to a month-to-month situation. And you know what? They were typical landlords to us in the sense that they ignored us half the time. But despite that, we always paid our rent. We were good neighbors to the other tenants and all the things you would expect from someone renting an apartment. In addition to this, I'd helped them with their business multiple times for free, offering services that probably would have totaled to about $2,000. On top of this, I was helping them out with their house sitting, their pet sitting, airport rides, etc. You know, things normal family members should do for one another. Well, I got a job offer in another state, so we formally ended the lease and began to move out. Well, a major complication during this is that my dog, originally my mom's but the dog picked me as her person, went into congestive heart failure. And this took an overwhelming toll on my mental health and on my financials. But thankfully, the dog is stable to a certain extent. Now, my mom knows about this and how distraught I've been. And when I was moving, I told her I'm gonna need my entire deposit back to help with the bills from the dog and from the move. And when I said this, she agreed as long as the apartment was clean, which is completely fair. So my partner and I, with the help of a friend, deep cleaned the apartment aside from the walls, which she told me not to worry about since she's going to repaint them regardless. So she saw the apartment and agreed that it was good to go and then said that we're all settled. But the real issue came when she sent our deposit back and went back on her word. They took $500 out for cleaning and painting fees, even though they assured us that they were not going to do that. When I asked her why, she accused me of not deep cleaning the house. I then requested photos of what was needed to be cleaned, which she refused to provide, by the way, and why she still charged us for painting when she said not to worry about it. At first, she said those conversations never happened, and when I sent proof of those conversations, her argument shifted, well, you're lucky we didn't charge you more. You should be grateful it was only $500. She knows that we needed that money for an upcoming surgery for my dog, and I was just completely in total shock. Well, fast forward, and she was supposed to come visit us in our new apartment in mid-September. But you know what? I ended up canceling the visit. She's always been kind of selfish and never there for me. But even this surprised me. She knows the depths of how hard we're struggling and still took the money when they're plenty wealthy. I mean, $500 is a lot of money, but it feels more than just about the money for me. She went back on her word and put being a greedy landlord first over being my mom. So am I the jerk for canceling the visit over this? Because I'm honestly still incredibly offended. Dude, there is no way I would ever want to see my parents again if they did that to me. Seriously, you literally had your dog almost die and you had to pay like an arm and a leg just to take care of it. And they're gonna sit there and be like, oh yeah, well, I'm gonna charge you $500. You never cleaned it and you didn't paint it like I wanted you to. And no, those conversations never happened. Like, dude, what's wrong with them? Like, this is some crazy, shady behavior. And I know for a fact if I had family members like this, I'd be like, okay, well, I will happily never see you again. Like, what is going on? It's simply not fair for you. You don't deserve this in the slightest. And the fact that they tried to pull this on you and then still expect to see you, that is just incredibly toxic. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, and I don't blame you for the way you reacted. Am I the jerk for moving traffic cones my entitled neighbor put in front of his house just so I could snag a parking spot that he was illegally trying to reserve for himself? Because right now he's very pissed off at me and I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, for a bit of background, I live on a street with free unrestricted parking. Spaces aren't assigned, there aren't even any painted lines marking individual spaces. It's a busy street to park on as we are close to the town center. I have 2 children, 1 primary school age and 1 small toddler. Well, our one neighbor, who is a 70-year-old man, regularly puts traffic cones in the road outside of his house to save the spot when he gets out. Now, I generally park elsewhere unless there's no other spots on our street or even on the streets on either side. In those cases, I move his cones and I just park there. He has confronted me about this whenever I've done it and has accused me of having no empathy. One time, he even stood behind my car to prevent me from parking there when I had my my 3-year-old daughter in the car itself. Well, during our last interaction, I had finally had enough of his attitude, and I told him straight up directly, look, you don't own the road outside your house and anyone can park there. Using cones to block a public street is illegal, so as much as you're trying to paint me as some kind of jerk, you're the one who's breaking the law. And also, for reference, until about now, I'd only moved his cones when I had no other option. But from now on, I'll park there whenever possible, simply because of his antisocial behavior. And next time that I see those cones out, I may decide to confiscate them altogether. Now, I will say I don't know if he has any kind of disability, but he seems perfectly mobile, and he's very active. He's also often doing like his own do-it-yourself front garden projects. He's carrying in bags of compost to his house, etc. There's also no driveways or garages on any house in the street. So with all that in mind, am I the jerk for the way this is all going down? Because right now I really just don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, if this guy really does have like some kind of disability and he's unable to park anywhere that's further away from his house, then he needs to go through the proper steps to get some kind of like disability placard or like reserved spot of some kind from the city, because I'm pretty sure there are services like that available in the United Kingdom if I'm not mistaken. And if I am, please feel free to correct me in the comments section, but I'm pretty sure that's a thing that you can like figure out. So no, personally, I don't think you're the jerk in this situation. I think him trying to like reserve spots by using traffic cones is really weird. And just like the original poster said, I'm pretty sure it's illegal because he does not own that spot in front of his house and literally anyone can park there if they want to. An entitled boomer pushes me at the grocery store all because he was being impatient when checking out his groceries. And I'm honestly blown away by the way I got treated because this seriously was such a crazy situation. Here's how it all went down. Okay, so I was standing in line at the self-checkout at the grocery store and it was just a little bit busy. All the stations were in use and 4 to 5 of us were waiting to be seen. So honestly, this was really nothing crazy, but this entitled boomer and his wife standing behind me are breathing out these obnoxious sighs and they're muttering to themselves and rattling the cart back and forth, acting like 3 minutes of waiting is the end of the world. Someone then finishes checking out and is loading up their cart with their bags, and I waited to move forward and take their spot because I didn't want to crowd them as they finished gathering their things. Well, the entitled boomer behind me goes, "That one's open now, go!" And then he pushes me between the shoulder blades towards the self-checkout station where the other person is finishing up. Now, I do not like being touched at the best of times, so my reaction was to whip around and very loudly tell him to keep his hands off of me. I said to him, "I don't know you and there is no reason for you to be touching me." He and his wife then immediately started huffing and puffing about how rude and nasty I'm being, when according to them, he was just trying to be helpful. The employee overseeing self-checkout saw what was going on, and he basically just told them to keep their hands to themselves. The entitled boomer once again gets angry and starts to tear into the employee. A manager then popped up a few seconds later as I was heading out with my stuff and was telling the boomers they'd be asked to leave if they continued causing problems. And sure, I will admit this is not an overly satisfying conclusion to the experience, unfortunately, but at least they were as annoyed as I was by the end of it, because they had no right to ever put their hands on me. Dude, I cannot imagine someone actively pushing me in the shoulder blades the second a station opens up. And the fact that the person overseeing all of this didn't be like, "Okay, you gotta go." Or at least be like, "Wow, you just assaulted the guy in front of you. I'm calling the police." Because that's literally what happened. I don't care what these people have to say. You cannot push someone like that and think that it's okay or you just trying to be helpful. It's straight up assault. Like, what were they thinking, dude? That's crazy to me. Because what they did was unacceptable and absolutely uncalled for. An entitled Karen literally tried to return a birthday cake to us after the party, saying that she wanted a refund because the cake was stale. And despite the fact that the cake was literally half eaten, with only frosting smears and crumbs left over, she still was demanding that we give her a full refund or else she was going to ruin us on social media. Here's what happened. Working as a cozy little bakery, you see all kinds of interesting characters, but some just absolutely take the cake. Last month, a woman came in to order a massive birthday cake for her son, and she was all about the glitz and glamour, extra frosting, fancy toppers, the works. We poured our hearts into it and we sent her on her way with smiles all around. Not a single complaint when she picked it up. Well, fast forward to the next afternoon and the door slams open and there she is again, but now with a half-eaten cake. What's left is just crumbles and frosting smears, and it's right here that she shoves the box across the counter, all while scowling at us, and launches into a rant about how the cake ruined the mood for everyone because it tasted stale. And she then actually demanded a full full refund. I tried to stay polite, explaining that our bakery does not refund mostly eaten cakes, which, by the way, looked like they had been devoured pretty enthusiastically. I asked if anything seemed wrong when she picked it up, but she just rolled her eyes and insisted that we needed to take responsibility for it not being fresh enough. When I gently pointed out that her family must have enjoyed it, seeing as how half of it had already vanished, she doubled down and tried to be like, well, you should be grateful for my feedback. Now, luckily, my manager backed me up, and obviously she did not get a refund. As she stormed out, she said she was going to ruin us on social media. Well, it's been weeks and we're still here, still baking, and we haven't heard a single peep about it online. And sometimes, honestly, you really have to wonder how some people trick themselves into thinking that the rules just aren't for them. Dude, imagine going back to a bakery and being like, oh, my family not only ate all of this cake, but we're demanding a refund. We didn't like it. It was too stale. Give me my money back or I'll ruin you on social media. It's like, dude, what are you talking about, man? You ate the cake. You can't just walk in and be like, I want a refund. We didn't enjoy it. But it's like, if you really didn't enjoy it, then why is it like basically completely gone? Like if there was actually something wrong with it and it wasn't just like, oh, this is stale, I think, then sure, like I would expect like a refund of some kind, especially if it was damaged or sabotaged or something like that. But from the sounds of it, it seemed like a normal cake and this lady's just being incredibly entitled. So yeah, she had no right to do that, and that is honestly super obnoxious. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My boyfriend's mom invited herself along to our trip to France and basically hijacked our first international vacation. And now, at this point, I'm so upset because I seriously just want to set some boundaries that right now I just don't know what to do. Here's how it all went down. Okay, so my boyfriend of 3 years and I booked a trip to France back in January, and I've been looking forward to it ever since then. And for the sake of the story, I'll call my boyfriend Tom. Last month, Tom's mom asked me what hotel we were staying at. So I sent her a link saying that she needs to save it for any future trip. She then immediately replies by saying, oh, we booked for the same dates as you. And I thought to myself, excuse me, what did you just say? I then asked Tom what this was all about, and he tells me he did not invite them, and that after talking to his family, it seemed like they booked the trip a few days ago. So it's non-refundable for them at this point, and he doesn't want to argue with his family. Well, fast forward to the trip and his whole family is there. Like they're literally in the same hotel. Instead of enjoying the vacation I had planned, we spent it waiting around and eating at mid places because of their dietary restrictions. When Tom and I grabbed coffee alone one morning, his mom texted us and said, you went without us? I then asked Tom to set some boundaries, but he thought it would be better to talk to them after the trip. At the last dinner, his mom said to us, let's all go to Portugal next summer. We then exchanged a glance and changed the subject. This was supposed to be our European vacation together. Instead, it turned into a family vacation. I'm furious and honestly anxious about future vacations. So I'm honestly wondering what would be the best way for Tom to set any kind of boundaries. Should he be blunt and tell him that we just don't want anyone coming with us next year? Or should he take a softer stance? We rarely argue and I love him, but I cannot go through another trip like this ever again. What should I do? Holy crap, that is so uncalled for. Seriously, that is one thing that I absolutely would never allow in my opinion. And sure, you probably never expected this to happen in the first place, but seriously, let this be a hard lesson that no, these people should never know your business, because chances are they will try to ruin your experience. My scumbag landlord decides to make my life a living nightmare, as he literally starts rifling through my belongings while I'm not even there, as well as making my living environment completely unlivable. So I decided to get some revenge by taking him to small claims court, where I ended up winning in spectacular fashion, winning back my security deposit, my last month's rent, as well as getting to watch this guy get completely owned by my lawyer and by the judge. Here's how I did it. Okay, so I moved to a new state after college for a job, and I found a house to rent pretty quickly, landing on one where the landlord said he caters to young professionals moving to the area. And this is red flag number one. I mean, you would never know the state landlord-tenant laws, and he was absolutely banking on that. So I moved into a duplex, it was near downtown, and it seemed pretty cool. That is, until I met my upstairs neighbors. They were catty and super loud from day one, while I was quiet and I lived alone. Anyways, after a few months they moved out, and the landlord had a maintenance crew basically gutting and updating the place upstairs. And this crew was super scummy. In fact, I'd come home from work to find find urine on my toilet seat, which was most definitely a frequent occurrence and not mine. One time when I came home, my underwear drawer was open and all my stuff was messed up and unfolded. Another time I came home and my mail was inside. Like there was absolutely no need to be touching my mailbox, which was separate from my neighbor's. Like that's a felony. Anyways, this all was commonplace, and the crew would start working before 7 o'clock in the morning, which is also illegal in that state based on noise ordinances. The week before I started my new job, the boiler broke and it was like 90 degrees inside because it wouldn't turn off, and it was blasting heat in the middle of summer. When I told my scumbag of a landlord that I needed to shower, he told me to go next door and ask, because the neighbors were his tenants too, and I didn't need to rent a hotel. If I did, he would take me to court and refuse to deduct it from the rent while the house was completely inhospitable. And it's like, what are you talking about? Anyways, long story short, this all continued for months, and I felt unsafe at home. My personal items were violated, and there was always urine I had to clean up daily. I then looked for another place immediately after researching landlord-tenant laws and realizing that he broke the lease by not being able to provide functional utilities or a peaceful and habitable environment to live in. So I took this jerk to small claims court for my entire deposit back and last month's rent since I moved out. And the entire time, he was saying he was going to take me to court for breach of my lease if I left. And it's like, screw you, buddy. I hired a lawyer to make sure I understood my rights. And guess what? That lawyer was his childhood best friend's dad. I mean, honestly, I could not have picked it better. You don't need one to go to small claims, but he asked if he could go, and I was like, absolutely. We get to court, and between the judge and the lawyer, they wipe the floor with that scummy piece of garbage, and I was able to show a completely clean house with no damage through photos. And for reference, he was trying to keep my security deposit for cleaning the fridge and closets, so I showed the judge photos proving otherwise. In the end, I was released from the lease because of his breach of contract. I got my last month's rent, my full security deposit, plus the $500 pet deposit that was non-refundable. He refused to pay the settlement within the 30 days that he had, so I took the judgment to his bank and was able to threaten him with garnishment if he didn't pay up. And thankfully that worked out because I ended up getting paid and I was able to get out of there no problem. Oh my gosh, that is so unbelievably disgusting. Like, these guys were not only like destroying your toilet, but they were also going through your stuff. They were going through your mail. Like, that is so violating. The original poster, she basically said like this was really scary and they're really glad they got out. And honestly, I would feel the exact same way, dude. Like, if you're working upstairs, don't go into my room and start going through stuff, especially not my underwear drawer. Like, dude, you're a weirdo. So yeah, this was so well deserved and such a good way to get revenge. It's not even funny, because this landlord absolutely deserved to get shut down. An entitled thrift store shopper literally just takes advantage of my kindness, as I offered to fix her dress for free, only for her to never pick it up when it was ready. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, when I was a young mom of two, I worked as a waiter and was barely making it by. There were times that money was so tight, I'd feel panicky when my kids' friends would come over after school and would want an apple, because I'd bought just enough for my own kids' lunches that week. In fact, all of our clothing came from thrift stores and garage sales literally out of necessity. Well, fast forward to now when things are so much better, but old habits die hard, and I still love to thrift and garage sale, not out of necessity anymore, but because I know there are amazing treasures that lurk there and I love the thrill of the hunt. One day I was in line at our local thrift store, and the 30-something-year-old woman in front of me was holding a beautiful blue silk slip dress, pleading with the woman behind the counter, saying that she didn't realize when she bought it the previous week that the slip had a tear in it, and she simply wanted her money back. Now, there are no returns and no refund signs everywhere in the store, and the woman behind the counter pointed to them and said no. This woman then said, "Please, I paid $15 for this dress that I need for a wedding this month. It's damaged and I can't wear it." Everyone in line was watching this, and some people were getting impatient, but I was flooded with empathy. $15 doesn't sound like much money, just like an apple for an 8-year-old guest isn't much food, but it brought me back immediately to what it was like walking that tightrope. Now, I happen to be a pretty good and inventive seamstress, so I stepped up and I said, "Hey, could you show me the tear?" And it was here the woman spun around and held it up for me, a small horizontal slit on the side just above the hip. I said, "Well, I can fix that for you for free. I'd love the challenge. It'll take me a few days. I mean, will that work?" She kind of awkwardly gave me the dress, and then we exchanged information, with the woman behind the counter looking relieved. Well, I patched the tear with some blue silk velvet I'd cut into a small flower shape, and I sewed a tiny rhinestone vintage button in the center, meaning that it looked basically intentional, and in my humble opinion, even better than before. And I was really psyched to have done this good deed, and to have rescued a pretty dress, which is also a passion of mine. I texted the woman, who we will call Jane for the sake of the story, and I sent her pictures of the dress. She then wrote back and said that she loved it and said that she would come and pick it up that afternoon. I then told her that I would be out, but I would put it on the porch in a bag. But when I came home that evening, the bag was still there. I texted Jane the next morning and I asked her if she would like me to leave it out again. She said yes and that she would be by that day. Well, this went on for another few days. I stopped texting and the bag and the dress just kind of sat there. And after a week of this, I decided to bring it into the house and see what would happen next. Well, about 10 days later, Jane texted me and told me that she was sorry that she hadn't come by, but she said that she was really busy as a mother of younger kids and also taught yoga classes and she just didn't have time to come and get it. She told me where she lived, which is about 10 minutes away from my house, which by the way is between her house and the center of town, where the only grocery store in the area is, and asked me if I would bring it to her instead. Now, there aren't that many great things about getting old, but one of them, for me at least, is knowing what to do and what not to do in most situations, especially based on collective life experience. Also, a better understanding of my own motives. I had seen a desperate young woman who was panicking about the $15 that she'd splurged on a dress that she couldn't wear. I saw myself in her shoes. I remembered my own desperation, and I thought to myself, okay, I can be a hero. With a little kindness, I can write a tiny piece of the universe for her with a small gesture, and she'll be so grateful. So maybe not entirely selfless. Maybe I wanted the endorphin rush of helping someone, or maybe I just wanted to be the kind of maternal figure who comes to the rescue that I hadn't had myself when I was her age. But when she asked me to drive the dress that I had spent an hour or so repairing for her for free to her house because she was too busy to come and get it, I had an immediate reset. I responded back by saying, no, rats, I won't be able to do that, but just text me the next time you know you'll be in my neighborhood and I will set it out for you. I'll also add that there was a notable lack of any kind of appreciation on her part through the whole process. I don't think she ever said thank you once. Another month goes by with nothing from Jane, so presumably the wedding she'd bought it for had come and gone. One day when one of my daughter-in-laws, who also loves to thrift, was visiting me, and I told her the story and I showed her the dress. She then said she loved it and asked to try it on. And you know what? It fit her perfectly. She then said to let her know if Jane never came for it because she would love to have it. And so with that, I just told her to take it with her because it was pretty clear that Jane was not coming for it. Now, I will say that I'd noticed during the repair that the dress had definitely been worn. There was even a small stain on the bodice. I had treated it and washed it, and it did come out, but I eventually figured out that Jane had bought the dress, worn the dress, and torn the dress herself, and was trying to scam the thrift store by saying it was torn when she bought it. Well, believe it or not, almost 3 months later, Jane actually called me one day and said to me, I'll be in your neighborhood this afternoon. Could you please put the dress out for me? And mind you, she had no apologies or any kind of explanations. Well, it gave me no small satisfaction to tell her that I was so sorry, but because I hadn't heard from her for so long, I had thought that she didn't want it after all, and I just gave it away. She then said, okay, and then she hung up the phone. Well, for what it's worth, I love weird stories, and the weirdness of this one made the experience well worth it. Also, this isn't a cautionary tale about reasons you shouldn't help people, because one entitled Jane won't stop me from offering to help people who need it whenever I can. Okay, I love this story so much, and I love how patient the original poster really was here. Honestly, I think I would have lost my mind after the first week, let alone the fact that they're like, oh, can you deliver it to me? I'm too busy to go over there, sorry. Like, dude, what are you talking about? It's a dress. Come and pick it up. I'm doing a good deed for you. And that's so unfortunate because literally, you were just trying to help this person out, and no one would have blamed you if you said, okay, I'm just not gonna do this. Like, I know if I was in your shoes, I probably would have stayed quiet and been like, okay, please get out of the line. But no, that's not what you did. You decided to be kind and charitable and step up, and that's like really honorable, especially since you saw yourself in this situation. Like, that's really sweet and very kind of you. But it's really a shame that people like Jane exist who just take advantage of other people and choose not to be responsible and at least like grateful for the good things people do for them. Because regardless of the way Jane acted, what you did was a very good thing. Today, I need to confess that I cheated to get into my PhD program, and even to this day, I've never told anyone about exactly how I did it. Here's what happened. About 4 years ago, back in 2021 during the pandemic, I had just finished my master's study and decided to enter a doctoral program. To do that, I needed to pass a very difficult exam that many people fail and end up only getting into the doctoral program on their second or third try, which is often more than a year later. It happened to coincide with the start of the pandemic, and this exam was held online. And since I had the chance to take it online, I decided to do so. Well, during this time, I was in need of money, and in my country, a doctoral program offers a stipend, like a kind of job. So with that in mind, I found a way to cheat online. Many of the exam answers I looked up were on the internet. Since we were monitored through cameras and had to record ourselves, I still found a way to search for the answers online, and even then, I had to be clever enough to understand, interpret, and write them down. So my entire exam was basically copied from things I found on the internet. And you know what? I passed on the first try, unlike many others who struggled to get in when it was in person. Now, I had taken a very similar exam for my master's degree, but I passed that on the second attempt. And I think I have the ability to have gotten into the doctoral program eventually, but probably not on my first try. Now I'm about to finish my doctorate, and I've never told absolutely anyone about this. Because yes, I cheated to get into my doctoral program. Okay, honestly, I want to say first and foremost that yeah, it was very wrong of you to cheat like this, but I think it will probably work out in the end. Like, it does look like you're going through the doctoral program and you're doing it honestly, at least I hope so, because getting in by cheating is never the answer. Like, don't cheat on your exams. There's such a high likelihood that you're going to get in trouble and that it could literally ruin your career. Because when you get to this level, this is not like, oh yeah, I cheated, I get detention like you're in high school. This is like massive career ramifications if you actually cheat on your stuff. So the risk you took was definitely not worth it, but I guess it worked out in the end. So hopefully you learned from this and you don't do this again, because this was a really stupid decision. My whole family is mad that we're charging my sister's family rent when they just found out we live in a millionaire's house rent-free, as they're demanding all of their money back for the rent money that they paid us. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my husband and I bought a beautiful farmhouse on 4 acres of land in the Pacific Northwest. During COVID, a rich couple moved a few blocks away, cleared a ton of land, and built a McMansion. Long story short, my husband did a lot of construction work on the house and really hit it off with the owners. Soon they were playing golf, we were hanging out, and they even took us to Paris. We became best friends, and through the years, they asked us to watch the house as they traveled, which we really enjoyed. They would usually be gone for weeks at a time, and they said enjoy the house and the cars, so that's exactly what we did. The house is on a private lake with a beach, as well as a pool, a hot tub, a sauna, a billiards room, a theater, etc. The couple informed us that they will be moving soon due to business and the heat of our summers. They had houses in other states, and they would like to keep this one, but they don't want it to just sit empty. They still want us to use it as a vacation home in the winter because they love the snowy mountains. So they asked us to move into it rent-free and just live in it, and they would continue to pay all the utilities and the upkeep. They would just keep the master bedroom, and we could live in the rest of it like it was our house. Now mind you, this is a $7 million house, and that money gets you a ton where we live. It sits on a private lake as well as 40 acres of land. Well, we discuss it and we decide to make the move. So now our house of 6 bedrooms is sitting empty, but we don't want to sell. We enjoy our new home and settle in for about 6 months and realize that it's stupid to be paying a mortgage for a house we don't use. Meanwhile, my family finds out about this house as we hosted Christmas in it, and we decide to tell people that we're renting it and that the owners gave us a great deal because my husband helped build it. We answer no questions about it, even though they kept drilling us. And of course, the question comes up with what we were going to do with our other house. Well, before I know it, my mom is strong-arming us into letting my sister's family, namely her husband and 4 kids, stay there. Now, we really don't like this because they're constantly making bad financial decisions and they simply don't care for stuff. After some guilt tripping about blood being thicker than water, we finally decided to let them stay. We had to take less rent to make it happen and charge them with taking care of the lawn and the pool in upkeep. It's been about a year and a half now of them staying there, and basically they barely keep up with any of the chores. Our yard looks overgrown and terrible, the pool is constantly not filtered or even balanced in the slightest. Fast forward to current day, and my sister's husband got laid off and they can't afford to stay at the house anymore. My husband somehow let it slip that our friends let us stay rent-free at the current house, and as a result, she is pissed off and tells the whole family. And now, as a result of that, they think we should give them back all the rent money they paid and let them stay for free because we're not paying any rent. And sure, giving them back the money would help them out tremendously since they have less income, but we still have a mortgage to pay. We also could have gotten higher rent, as well as someone in there who would actually take care of our home. And here's the thing, I get people are family, and you know what? We tried to help and make our good fortune work for everyone. They also asked to move into the big house with us, and I said absolutely not. I would never trust them around our friend's house. So seriously, am I overreacting? I mean, what would you do in this circumstance? Because right now, I just don't know what to do. Okay, first of all, I cannot stand the saying, blood is thicker than water, because holy crap, no it isn't. I've had so many family members betray my trust, it's not even funny. family, all under this saying of like, oh yeah, we're family, we've got to help each other out. But it's like, dude, not if you're gonna take advantage of me. And in my opinion, that's exactly what your family's doing to you. Like, this is clearly them just being like, oh yeah, well, we can live here, and since you're living there rent-free, you should give us back all the money we paid you. But it's like, no, I don't think so. If I own a house and you're gonna be renting it, guess what? You're not gonna live there rent-free. You're gonna pay for it by renting it, and that'll pay for my mortgage. That is simply the way it works, and no, I'm not made of money, so you have to pay or you've gotta go. So honestly, this whole situation is super messy, because in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, I think you absolutely need to protect yourself first and foremost before anyone else. Because from the sounds of it, it seems like your family would happily watch your entire life fall to the ground. And that simply is not fair for you or your husband in the slightest. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.